The air in Han Seojun's mansion was heavy, suffocating even. Dust clung to every corner of the grand halls, once gleaming with the pride of his family name. Now the chandeliers hung like forgotten relics, their crystal prisms dulled by neglect. The vast estate, surrounded by tall iron gates and sprawling, unkempt gardens, was an eerie reflection of its owner, cold, distant and broken. Seojun sat by the floor-to-ceiling window in his study, nursing a glass of whiskey he hadn't bothered diluting. Rain streaked down the glass in lazy trails, the gloomy weather fitting the dark cloud of memories that haunted him. His mind drifted, unbidden, to the screams, the screeching of tires, and the blinding headlights of that night, the night his parents were stolen from him. He clenched his jaw, pushing the images away, and focused instead on the burning sensation of the whiskey sliding down his throat. A knock at the door disrupted his brooding. Seojun's eyes darted toward it, his irritation flaring. "What now?" he barked. The butler, one of the few staff members who hadn't yet quit, peeked in cautiously. His graying hair and weary face spoke of years of enduring Seojun's temper. "Sir, there's a candidate here for the housekeeping position," the butler said, his voice measured but nervous. Seojun scoffed. "Another one? How long do you think this one will last? A week? Maybe 2? "He seems determined, sir." Seojun rolled his eyes. "Send him in. Let's see how determined he is." Lee Hyun-soo stood in the grand foyer, clutching a thin folder containing his resume. He shifted nervously on his worn sneakers, the grandeur of the mansion intimidating him. But he straightened his back and inhaled deeply. He had no choice but to be here. His family needed him. His mother's medical bills were piling up, and his younger sister's tuition was overdue. When the butler returned and gestured for him to follow, Hyun-soo's resolve hardened. He was used to fighting uphill battles. The study door opened, and Seojun didn't bother looking up. He remained in his chair, swirling his whiskey. "You're the new applicant?" Seojun drawled, his voice dripping with disdain. "Yes, sir. My name is Lee Hyun-soo," Hyun-soo replied, bowing respectfully despite the icy reception. "Why are you here? To poke around in my life like the rest of them?" Seojun's gaze finally met Hyun-soo's, cold and assessing. "I'm here because I need a job," Hyun-soo said evenly, "and because this mansion could use someone to bring it back to life." Seojun let out a sharp laugh, though there was no humor in it. "Bring it back to life? What makes you think I care about that?" Hyun-soo's eyes didn't waver. "Maybe you don't. But a house like this deserves to be cared for, whether you care or not." For a moment, Seojun was taken aback by Hyun-soo's boldness. Most people cowered under his biting remarks, but this boy stood his ground. "Do you even know what you're getting yourself into?" Seojun asked, rising from his chair. His imposing figure cast a shadow over Hyun-soo. "I'm not easy to work for. I don't care for pleasantries, and I don't have patience for mistakes." "I'm not afraid of hard work," Hyun-soo replied simply. Seojun's lips twitched, almost as if he were amused, but the expression vanished as quickly as it appeared. He leaned in slightly, his voice low and menacing. "You'll regret staying here. Everyone does." The camera lingers on Hyun-soo's resolute face as he replies, "Then I'll be the first who doesn't."
The first day of work felt like walking on broken glass for Hyun-soo. Han Seojun wasted no time asserting his authority, or rather, his disdain. Every task Hyun-soo attempted was met with relentless criticism. When Hyun-soo polished the antique vases in the hallway, Seojun sneered at the streaks on the glass. When Hyun-soo swept the marble floors, Seojun pointed out specks of dust he claimed were mist. "Is this what you call clean?" Seojun said, holding a pristine vase under the light and scrutinizing it with exaggerated disdain. "It's cleaner than it's been in years," Hyun-soo muttered under his breath. "What was that?" Seojun's tone cut through the air like a knife. "Nothing, sir," Hyun-soo replied quickly, bowing his head to hide his irritation. Seojun smirked, clearly satisfied. "Good. Then get back to work." It went on like this for days. Seojun seemed determined to break Hyun-soo's resolve, throwing unreasonable demands his way. Reorganize the library by tomorrow, he ordered one morning, ignoring the fact that the library had thousands of books, many of which were layered with years of dust. Hyun-soo bit back his frustration. "I need this job," he reminded himself. His mother's pale face and his sister's hopeful smile fueled his determination. One night, after an exhausting day, Hyun-soo was in the kitchen cleaning up when he heard it, muffled sobs drifting down the hall. He froze, his hand stilling over the sink. The sound was faint, but unmistakable. Curiosity got the better of him, and he quietly made his way toward the source. It led him to the study, where the door was slightly ajar. Peeking through the crack, he saw Seo-jun sitting on the floor, his knees drawn up to his chest. His head was buried in his arms, and his shoulders shook with each sob. Hyun-soo's heart twisted. This wasn't the cold, unfeeling man he had come to know. This was someone deeply broken, someone drowning in grief. He wanted to step in, to say something, but he knew it wasn't his place. Instead, he retreated silently, his mind racing. The next morning, Hyun-soo made a quiet decision. He wouldn't confront Seo-jun about what he had seen, but he would try to ease the man's pain in his own way. It started with small things. He brewed a cup of chamomile tea and left it on Seo-jun's desk, saying it was good for stress. Seo-jun eyed it suspiciously but didn't comment. When Seo-jun criticized his work, Hyun-soo responded with a calm nod instead of snapping back. He didn't push, didn't pry, but his demeanor softened. One day, Hyun-soo noticed a family portrait on a dusty shelf. It was the only sign of warmth in the otherwise cold mansion. He carefully cleaned the frame and placed it on Seo-jun's desk. When Seo-jun saw it, his expression flickered, pain, gratitude, and anger all rolled into one. The change didn't go unnoticed. Seo-jun grew more irritable, as though Hyun-soo's kindness was a challenge to his carefully constructed walls. Late one evening, Seo-jun cornered him in the hallway. His face was a mask of fury, but his eyes betrayed something deeper. "What do you think you're doing?" he demanded. Hyun-soo blinked, genuinely confused. "I don't understand. All these little gestures, the picture. Do you think I need your pity?" Seo-jun's voice was sharp, but it wavered. "It's not pity," Hyun-soo replied evenly. "I just thought." "That's your problem," Seo-jun interrupted, stepping closer. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "You think too much about things that don't concern you." Hyun-soo held his ground, refusing to look away. "You're hurting, and I don't need your help." Seo-jun snapped, his voice cracking. "If you can't keep your nose out of my business, you're fired. Do you understand me?" Hyun-soo met Seo-jun's glare, his heart pounding but his voice steady. "Fire me if you want, but I'm not going to stop trying to help you." Soo wasn't fired. The next morning, he arrived for work half expecting to find a termination letter on his cot or to be escorted out by security. Instead, the day proceeded as usual. Seo-jun acted as if their confrontation hadn't happened, though his glances were sharper and his comments, if possible, more biting. Hyun-soo, however, took this as a sign. He stayed. The days that followed were tense but telling. Hyun-soo continued his quiet acts of kindness. He brewed Seo-jun's favorite coffee, black, no sugar, each morning, leaving it on the desk without a word. He watered the neglected plants in the conservatory, brightening the once dull space. He even took the time to repair a loose knob on Seo-jun's favorite armchair. Seo-jun noticed. He never acknowledged these gestures, but Hyun-soo caught glimpses of his reaction, a softened gaze lingering on the coffee cup, a faint smile when the conservatory filled with sunlight, a quiet sigh of relief when the chair no longer wobbled. One night, after another long day, Hyun-soo found Seo-jun sitting on the balcony, staring into the night sky. He hesitated before approaching, not wanting to intrude. "You don't know when to quit, do you?" Seo-jun's voice drifted through the darkness, sharp but lacking its usual venom. "I've been told I'm stubborn," Hyun-soo replied, stepping closer. Seo-jun scoffed but didn't send him away. After a long silence, he spoke again, his voice low and distant. "It happened on a night like this." Hyun-soo frowned. "What did?" Seo-jun didn't look at him. His gaze remained fixed on the stars, but his eyes were hollow, lost in a memory. "The accident." Hyun-soo stayed quiet, sensing that Seo-jun needed to speak. "We were coming back from a charity event. My father was driving. He always insisted on driving, no matter what." Seo-jun's voice wavered. "I was in the back seat, arguing with them. About something stupid. I don't even remember what." A pause. "Then, it happened. A truck, out of nowhere. My father swerved, but it was too late. Everything went black." Hyun-soo felt a lump in his throat but remained silent, letting Seo-jun continue. "When I woke up in the hospital, they were gone. Just like that." Seo-jun's hands clenched the railing. "I keep thinking, if I hadn't been arguing, maybe he would have seen the truck in time." "It wasn't your fault," Hyun-soo said softly. Seo-jun finally turned to him, eyes red but dry. "You don't know that." "I know guilt," Hyun-soo replied, meeting his gaze. "And I know it eats you alive if you let it." Another silence stretched between them, but it felt different, less heavy, more shared. "Why do you care?" Seo-jun asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Hyun-soo shrugged. "Maybe because I know what it's like to feel alone." The days that followed were lighter. Seo-jun didn't magically transform into a warm, approachable person, but the edges of his demeanor softened. His comments, while still sarcastic, lacked their usual sting. He even offered a begrudging thanks when Hyun-soo handed him a file he had been searching for. One afternoon, Hyun-soo found Seo-jun in the kitchen, staring at a burnt pot. The sight was almost comical. "Don't ask," Seo-jun muttered. Hyun-soo chuckled. "Let me guess. You tried to cook." Seo-jun rolled his eyes but didn't protest when Hyun-soo took over. As Hyun-soo stirred a simple broth, Seo-jun leaned against the counter, watching in silence. "You do this for your family?" Seo-jun asked suddenly. Hyun-soo nodded. "My mom's health isn't great. My little sister loves soup, though." Seo-jun's expression softened. "Must be nice. Having people to cook for." "You could come over," Hyun-soo said without thinking. Seo-jun blinked, caught off guard. "What?" "For my sister's birthday. It's this weekend. Nothing fancy, just a small gathering. You're welcome to join." Seo-jun opened his mouth to decline but hesitated. The idea of stepping outside his self-imposed prison was terrifying, but tempting. "I'll think about it," he said finally, his voice cautious. Hyun-soo smiled, sensing a breakthrough. Seo-jun, however, stared at the bubbling broth, unsure if he was ready to face the world beyond his walls. Seo-jun stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the lapels of his coat for what felt like the 100th time. His usually composed reflection betrayed him, eyes darting, shoulders stiff, fingers fidgeting with the fabric of his collar. He looked more like a man bracing for battle than someone heading to a child's birthday party. "Just a party," he muttered under his breath. A simple birthday party. It was anything but simple for him. The thought of stepping into someone else's home, surrounded by strangers, filled him with a gnawing anxiety. What if they stared? Judged? The walls he had carefully constructed over the years seemed to quiver, threatened by the warmth he'd catch glimpses of through Hyun-soo's stories. He hesitated before leaving the room. The echo of his footsteps in the empty mansion reminded him of just how alone he was. Shaking off the unease, he grabbed his keys and headed out to the address Hyun-soo had given him. The house was small, nestled in a quiet neighborhood that buzzed with life. Kids darted around the yard, their laughter mingling with the scent of grilled food and the sound of a lively tune playing from somewhere inside. It was the kind of scene Seo Jun had only ever seen in movies or read about in books. He gripped the steering wheel tighter, parked, and took a deep breath before stepping out. Hyun-soo was waiting at the gate, waving him over with a bright smile that momentarily eased the tightness in Seo-jun's chest. "You made it." Hyun-soo greeted, his voice warm and genuine. "Yeah," Seo-jun replied, nodding stiffly. He glanced around, taking in the festivity. "Nice place." "It's home," Hyun-soo said simply, leading him inside. The moment Seo-jun crossed the threshold, he was hit by a wave of warmth, both literal and figurative. The walls were adorned with family photos, and the air buzzed with chatter and laughter. The scent of homemade dishes drifted from the kitchen, where Hyun-soo's mother worked alongside a few relatives. This way, Hyun-soo guided him, weaving through the crowd until they reached a group of kids clustered around a small table, eagerly unwrapping presents. "Appa," a young girl called out, running up to Hyun-soo and throwing her arms around his waist. "Yoonji, meet my friend," Hyun-soo introduced, gently disentangling himself. "This is Seo-jun." Yoonji's eyes widened as she looked up at Seo-jun, her gaze full of curiosity and awe. "Are you a prince?" Seo-jun blinked, caught off guard. No. "You look like one," she insisted, tugging on his sleeve. "Do you like cake?" Yeah, I do," Seo-jun answered, a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "Good. Come with me," Yoonji declared, pulling him toward the dessert table. Hyun-soo chuckled as Seo-jun, clearly out of his element, was dragged away by the pint-sized whirlwind. The rest of the party felt like a blur. Seo-jun found himself surprisingly at ease, thanks in large part to Yoonji's relentless enthusiasm. She introduced him to every guest, made sure he sampled every dish, and even roped him into a round of charades. She and Hyun-soo introduced him to his mother, a kind woman who welcomed him heartily. For the first time in years, Seo-jun laughed, real, unguarded laughter that left him feeling lighter. The weight he always carried seemed to lift, if only for a moment. Later, as the guests trickled out and the house quieted down, Seo-jun found himself on the porch with Hyun-soo. The night air was cool and refreshing, a welcome contrast to the warmth inside. "Thanks for coming," Hyun-soo said, leaning against the railing. "I should be thanking you," Seo-jun replied. "Your family, they're amazing." Hyun-soo smiled, a hint of pride in his eyes. "They are." There was a comfortable silence between them, broken only by the distant hum of cicadas. "I didn't realize how much I missed this," Seo-jun admitted softly, almost to himself. "Being around people. Feeling normal." Hyun-soo glanced at him, a gentle understanding in his gaze. "You are normal, Seo-jun. Just a bit rough around the edges." Seo-jun chuckled, the sound low and genuine. "Is that your way of calling me difficult?" "I said what I said." Hyun-soo grinned. They both laughed, the tension of the day melting away. "We're friends now," Hyun-soo added, his tone serious but kind. "That means you're stuck with me." Seo-jun looked at him, the weight of those words settling deep in his chest. Friends. It was a simple word, but one he hadn't heard directed at him in a long time. "Yeah," he murmured with a smile. "I guess I am." For the first time in years, that thought didn't scare him. The days that followed the birthday party felt different, lighter somehow. The usual tension that filled the air at Seo-jun's mansion seemed to dissipate, replaced by something warmer, though neither Seo-jun nor Hyun-soo could put a name to it. Hyun-soo noticed the first change one morning. Seo-jun, who typically left half-eaten plates behind or skipped meals altogether, actually sat through breakfast. He even asked Hyun-soo to eat with him, adding if he wanted more coffee, a gesture so out of character that Hyun-soo almost choked. "Did I do something wrong?" Hyun-soo asked cautiously, watching Seo Jun pour coffee with a steady hand. Seo Jun raised an eyebrow, setting the mug in front of him. Why would you think that? I don't know. You're being, Hyun-soo hesitated. Nice. Seojun's lips quirked in a half-smile. We are friends, aren't we? But don't get used to it. Despite the warning, Seojun's behavior continued to shift. He started noticing things he'd previously ignored, like how Hyun-soo always worked late into the night or how he sometimes skipped meals to get everything done. One evening, after a particularly grueling day, Hyun-soo found a small paper bag on his bed. Inside was a set of herbal teas, the exact kind his mother used to brew when he was stressed. Hyun-soo's chest tightened as he stared at the thoughtful gift. How did you know I liked these? He asked the next morning, holding the bag as Seo Jun entered the dining room. You mentioned it once, Seo Jun said nonchalantly, sitting down with a newspaper. Figured you could use them. Hyun-soo blinked, stunned. He barely remembered mentioning it. Was Seo Jun listening? Thanks, Hyun-soo murmured, his voice soft. Seo Jun merely nodded, hiding behind the rustle of the newspaper. The changes didn't go unnoticed by Mr. Choi, the butler who had served Seojun's family for decades. Mr. Lee, the butler called out one afternoon, catching Hyun-soo in the hallway. Yes, Mr. Choi. I just wanted to say, thank you, Mr. Choi said, his usually stoic expression softening. The young master seems happier. It's been a long time since I've seen him like this. Hyun-soo frowned, shaking his head. I haven't done anything. Mr. Choi gave him a knowing look. Sometimes, it's not about what you do. It's about who you are. Hyun-soo didn't know how to respond to that, so he simply nodded, feeling a warmth in his chest that lingered long after the butler walked away. Later that week, Seo Jun insisted that Hyun-soo take the weekend off to visit his family. You've been working hard, Seo Jun said, leaning against the doorway of Hyun-soo's room. Go spend some time with them. Hyun-soo blinked in surprise. Are you serious? You never let me leave early. Well, I'm making an exception, Seo Jun shrugged. Don't make me regret it. Hyun-soo grinned. Thanks, Seo Jun. Really? Hyun-soo leaned back on the worn couch in his family's living room, watching Yoonji animatedly describe a recent school project. Their mother had retired to bed, leaving the siblings to their late-night chatter. The warmth of home wrapped around him, a stark contrast to the cold marble halls of Seojun's mansion. Seriously, though, Yoonji said, leaning forward with a grin. I can't believe your boss actually came to my party. He looked so serious, but I could tell he was trying. Hyun-soo chuckled softly, remembering Seojun's awkward smiles and stiff posture. Yeah, he's complicated. Complicated? Please. Yoonji nudged him with her elbow. He's obviously got a soft spot for you. You should have seen how he watched you the whole time. Hyun-soo frowned, shaking his head. He was just being polite. Polite, my foot. Yoonji laughed. That man likes you, Hyun-soo. It's so obvious. Hyun-soo felt a strange flutter in his chest, but he quickly pushed it down. Don't be ridiculous. He's my boss. That's all. Yoonji tilted her head, studying him. Okay, fine. But how do you feel about him? The question hung in the air, heavier than Hyun-soo expected. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. How did he feel about Seo Jun? I don't know, he admitted finally, his voice soft. Yoonji's gaze softened. It's okay not to know, she said, echoing her words from earlier. But, Hyun-soo, you deserve someone who sees you, really sees you. Hyun-soo gave her a small smile, but the conversation left a knot in his stomach. Later that night, Hyun-soo lay in his childhood bed, staring at the ceiling. The room was exactly as he'd left it years ago, posters of his favorite bands peeling at the edges, a stack of books on the nightstand, and a small lamp casting a warm glow. His mind, however, was far from the familiar comforts of home. It kept drifting back to Seo-jun. He thought about the way Seo-jun had smiled at Yoonji's party, tentative but genuine. The way he had quietly slipped away to avoid being the center of attention, yet stayed long enough to be a part of it. Seo-jun was a mystery wrapped in layers of hurt and isolation. But beneath that, Hyun-soo had seen glimpses of something else: kindness, vulnerability, and a longing to connect. Why was he thinking about this? Hyun-soo turned onto his side, frustration gnawing at him. He reached for his phone but hesitated. Instead, he opened the drawer of his nightstand and pulled out a small photograph. It was an old picture of him and his boyfriend, taken on a rare trip to the beach. Jin-ho. The man who had been a constant in his life for years. The man he loved, but also the man who kept their relationship hidden, always out of sight. Hyun-soo's throat tightened. Nothing could come of this. Whatever feelings he thought he might have for Seo-jun were fleeting, confused. His life was already complicated and
Morning, Hyun-soo pulled on his hoodie, preparing to leave for work. His mother stood at the kitchen counter, carefully wrapping a neatly packed lunch. "Mum, you don't have to do this," Hyun-soo said, adjusting his bag. "Nonsense," she replied, sealing the container. "Your boss looks like someone who doesn't eat real food. He needs this." Hyun-soo rolled his eyes. "You met him for barely 2 minutes, and you've already decided he's malnourished." His mother chuckled, handing him the bag. Mothers just know these things. Besides, a warm, home-cooked meal can make a world of difference to someone who feels alone. Before Hyun-soo could respond, Yoonji bounced into the room, holding out a box of chocolates. "And these are for him too," she said cheerfully. Hyun-soo groaned. "What is this? A fan club?" "You're just jealous," Yoonji teased. "Don't act like you don't talk about him all the time. Seo-jun this, Seo-jun that." "I do not," Hyun-soo protested, but his mother's knowing smile silenced him. "Just give them to him," she said, "and treat him well. He's still your boss, after all." Shaking his head, Hyun-soo took the chocolates. "Fine. But if he asks why I'm acting like a delivery boy, I'm blaming both of you." When Hyun-soo arrived at the mansion, he was greeted by Mr. Choi, who seemed more animated than usual. "Good to see you again, Mr. Hyun-soo," the butler said with a slight bow. "The house has been quieter without you." "Is that so?" Hyun-soo asked, raising an eyebrow. "Oh yes," Mr. Choi replied with a glint in his eye. "The young master has been in quite the mood." Though, of course, he'd never admit it. Hyun-soo laughed softly as he walked into the main hall. There, Seo-jun stood by the large bay window, his posture as composed as ever. "You're back," Seo-jun said, his tone neutral, though his eyes betrayed a flicker of relief. "Yep," Hyun-soo replied, holding up the bag and chocolates. "And apparently, I come bearing gifts. My mum made you this, and my sister insisted on the chocolates." Seo-jun blinked, his usual cool demeanor faltering. "Your mum made this for me?" Hyun-soo nodded, setting the items on the table. "She said you look like someone who doesn't eat properly." Seo-jun stared at the container, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Tell her, thank you, and your sister too." "You can tell her yourself next time," Hyun-soo teased. Seo-jun shot him a half-hearted glare, but the warmth in his expression was unmistakable. It was late in the evening when Seo-jun called for Hyun-soo. The mansion was quiet, the kind of silence that made every creak of the floors feel amplified. Hyun-soo had just finished his tasks for the day and was ready to retreat to his room when Mr. Choi intercepted him in the hallway. "The young master requests your presence in the lounge," Mr. Choi informed him, his usual stoic face betraying a hint of curiosity. Hyun-soo hesitated. It wasn't like Seo-jun to invite him for anything outside of work. Still, he nodded and made his way to the lounge. When he entered, Seo-jun was already seated on the sleek leather couch, a bottle of soju and 2 glasses on the low table before him. He looked up, his usual composed demeanor softening. "Sit," Seo-jun said, gesturing to the chair across from him. Hyun-soo raised an eyebrow as he sat down. "What's this about? Are you trying to bribe me into working an extra hour?" A faint smile tugged at Seojun's lips. Not everything is a negotiation, Hyun-soo. Sometimes people just talk. Hyun-soo smiled and leaned back, crossing his arms. All right, talk then. Seojun poured the soju into the glasses and slid one across the table. You first. Hyun-soo sighed, taking the glass but not drinking immediately. The room was dimly lit, and the quiet crackle of the artificial fireplace made the atmosphere unexpectedly intimate. I don't know what you expect me to say, Hyun-soo began. My life isn't exactly exciting. That's not true, Seojun said, his voice softer than usual. You're one of the most driven people I know. Hyun-soo chuckled bitterly. Driven? Sure. But what does that even matter when life keeps throwing obstacles at you? He took a sip, the warmth of the drink spreading through him. You probably don't know this, but my dad left us when I was a kid. He ran off with another woman, leaving my mum to raise me and my sister on her own. Seojun's expression darkened, but he stayed silent, letting Hyun-soo continue. She worked herself to the bone for years, Hyun-soo said, his voice tinged with both admiration and pain. But eventually, her health gave out. Now she's sick, and I have to make sure she's taken care of. On top of that, I need to support Yoonji through school. She's smart, brilliant even, but she deserves a chance to chase her dreams, not end up like me, stuck in a cycle I can't break. What do you mean, stuck? Seojun asked, leaning forward slightly. I wanted to be a software engineer, Hyun-soo admitted, but college costs money. And money. He shook his head. Well, you know how it is. Seojun's chest tightened as he listened. Hyun-soo's voice was steady, but the weight of his struggles was evident in his tone, in the way his shoulders sagged ever so slightly. You're doing everything for them, Seojun said quietly. Of course I am. They're my family, Hyun-soo replied, a faint smile tugging at his lips. I don't resent it. It's just, sometimes I wish I could do more. Be more. Seojun felt a pang in his chest, a mix of admiration and sorrow. This man, with his unwavering dedication and quiet strength, was unlike anyone he had ever known. The realization hit him then, soft but undeniable. He was falling for Hyun-soo. But before he could say anything, Hyun-soo continued, his tone shifting. At least I have Jinho, he said almost as an afterthought. Seojun blinked. Jinho? Yeah, Hyun-soo said, taking another sip. We've been together for 2 years now. Seojun felt his stomach drop. Hyun-soo's gaze grew distant. He's a good guy, but he doesn't want to go public. Says it's because of the stigma, but sometimes I wonder if that's just an excuse. I get it. It's hard being open about this kind of thing, especially in his position. But it's been 2 years. How long am I supposed to wait? The words felt like a knife twisting in Seojun's chest. He forced a neutral expression, though his mind was spinning. That must be difficult, Seojun managed to say, his voice tight. It is, Hyun-soo admitted, but I care about him. I just wish he'd care enough to stop hiding. Seojun's grip on his glass tightened. The thought of Hyun-soo, this incredible person, giving his heart to someone who didn't fully appreciate it, was almost unbearable. He wanted to say something, to tell Hyun-soo that he deserved better, that he deserved someone who would never hide him, never make him question his worth, but the words caught in his throat. Seojun sat in the lounge, watching Hyun-soo drain another glass of soju. His cheeks were flushed, his usual reserved demeanor slipping away with each sip. He had started rambling about Jinho again, how much he cared for him, how painful it was to be hidden away like a shameful secret. Hyun-soo was already drunk, and Seojun decided to help him to bed. Come on, let's get you to bed. Hyun-soo grumbled something incoherent, but didn't resist as Seojun stood and helped him up. He carried Hyun-soo bridal-style, steadying him as they made their way to his room. Once inside, Seojun gently eased Hyun-soo onto the bed. Hyun-soo's head hit the pillow and he sighed, a content sound that made Seojun's chest tighten. For a moment he just stood there, watching as Hyun-soo's features softened in sleep. He looked so peaceful, so unguarded. The way the overhead light cast a soft glow on his face made him look almost ethereal. Seojun's gaze lingered on his lips, and an unbidden thought flashed through his mind. Don't. He clenched his fists, stepping back as if the distance could quell the war inside him. "Good night, Hyun-soo," he whispered, his voice barely audible. He turned and left, closing the door quietly behind him. But sleep didn't come easy that night. Seojin lay in his bed, staring at the ceiling. His mind refused to quiet, replaying the night's events in an endless loop. The way Hyun-soo had smiled, the way his voice had cracked when he spoke about Jinho, it was too much. By the time the first rays of dawn crept through the curtains, Seojin felt like a shell of himself. He dragged himself out of bed and into the dining room, where Hyun-soo was already setting the table for breakfast. "Morning, boss," Hyun-soo said, pausing when he looked up. His brow furrowed. "Are you okay? You look tired. Like really tired." "I'm fine," Seojin replied quickly, brushing past him. Hyun-soo tilted his head, clearly unconvinced, but he didn't press. Seojin needed a distraction, something, anything, to pull him out of this downward spiral. Back in his study, Seojin stared at the stack of documents on his desk. He had ignored the company for too long, trusting that the people around him would handle everything. But now he needed to dive back in. He picked up his phone and hesitated for a moment before dialing a number. "Secretary Yoon speaking," came the voice on the other end. "Yoon, it's Seojun," he said, his voice brisk. There was a beat of stunned silence before Yoon replied, Yes, sir." "Good morning, what can I do for you?" Seojun almost winced. He couldn't remember the last time he had spoken to his secretary outside of signing papers. "I need an update on the company," he said. "Everything, no sugarcoating." Yoon hesitated before responding. "Well, sir, there are some concerns. I didn't think you wanted to be bothered, but Chatu, your aunt Mira, and her son, Tai-yong, have been making some questionable moves." Seojun's grip on the phone tightened. "What kind of moves?" Yoon cleared his throat. "They've been liquidating assets, moving funds around without clear explanations. I suspect they might be trying to sell parts of the company, maybe even the whole thing." Seojun felt the blood drain from his face. "Sell the company?" "Yes, sir," Yoon confirmed. "I don't have concrete proof yet, but the signs are troubling." Seojun ended the call with a curt, "Thank you," then sat back in his chair, his mind racing. The betrayal stung, but more than that, the realization hit him hard. He couldn't afford to lose focus now. As much as his heart ached for Hyun-soo, his family's legacy was at stake. And for the first time in a long while, Seojun felt a fire ignite within him. He wasn't going to let this happen, not without a fight.
Hyun-soo shuffled into the dining room, still groggy and half awake, only to stop dead in his tracks at the sight before him. There, standing by the large bay window, was Seojun, but not the Seojun he was used to. Dressed in a sharp, tailored navy suit that hugged his frame perfectly, his hair slicked back with effortless precision, Seojun looked like he had just stepped out of a glossy magazine. He held a steaming mug of coffee in one hand, the morning sunlight casting a golden glow on his angular features. Hyun-soo blinked, momentarily wondering if he was still dreaming. This was not the same man who lounged around the house in casual sweaters, his hair perpetually messy. No, this Seojun exuded power and control, someone who could command a room with just his presence. "Good morning," Seojun said, glancing up from his coffee. Hyun-soo stammered, gee, good morning." Seojun raised an eyebrow, amused. "You okay? You're staring." Hyun-soo immediately looked away, his face burning. "I wasn't staring." "You definitely were." Seojun chuckled, setting his coffee down and adjusting the knot of his tie. "Mind giving me a hand with this?" Hyun-soo froze, the request catching him off guard. "Me? Unless you see someone else here," Seojun teased, stepping closer and holding out the ends of his tie. Hyun-soo swallowed hard, his hands trembling slightly as he reached for the fabric. The space between them suddenly felt too small, too intimate. His fingers brushed against Seojun's chest as he looped the tie around, and he could feel the steady warmth of his body beneath the crisp shirt. "Relax," Seojun said softly, his voice low enough to send shivers down Hyun-soo's spine. I am relaxed," Hyun-soo muttered, though his shaky hands said otherwise. He focused on the tie, trying desperately not to look up. But even then, his mind betrayed him, replaying the image of Seo-jun standing there like some kind of untouchable prince. His heart pounded so loudly he was sure Seo-jun could hear it. Finally, he tightened the knot and stepped back. Done. Seo-jun inspected it briefly, then gave him a small smile. Not bad for a first attempt. Thanks. Hyun-soo nodded quickly, still avoiding his gaze. The sound of a car pulling up outside broke the tension. Mr. Yoon, Seo-jun's secretary, was waiting by the door, flanked by 2 security escorts. Seo-jun grabbed his briefcase and turned back to Hyun-soo. "Don't wait up for me," he said lightly before stepping out. Hyun-soo followed him to the doorway, watching as he climbed into the sleek black car and disappeared down the driveway. As the car faded from view, a bittersweet ache settled in Hyun-soo's chest. Seo-jun was a world away, untouchable, living a life of wealth and privilege that Hyun-soo couldn't even begin to fathom. He sighed, his fingers still tingling from where they had touched the tie. "We're so different," he thought. And yet, for reasons he couldn't explain, his heart refused to let go. Seo-jun stepped into his office, the air inside sharper and cooler than he remembered. Mr. Yoon was already waiting for him, standing stiffly by the desk with a small black hard drive in hand. "This is it?" Seo-jun asked, his voice calm but edged with tension. "Yes," Mr. Yoon replied, glancing around as if the walls had ears. "One of our contacts managed to get it out of Myra's office last night. I believe it contains everything, proof of the embezzlement, their plans for the company, but we can't get into it." Seo-jun's brow furrowed as he turned the drive over in his hand. "Encrypted?" "Very. I've already had 2 IT specialists look at it, but they said it would take days, maybe weeks, to crack." Seo-jun frowned, frustration bubbling under the surface. "We don't have that kind of time." Before he could say more, a knock interrupted them. "Sir, the board meeting is starting in 5 minutes, a young assistant said from the door. Seo-jun straightened his jacket. "Good. Let's go." Seo-jun's arrival in the boardroom was like a gust of wind blowing through a stagnant room. The board members, who were used to his absence, exchanged uneasy glances as he walked in without so much as a greeting. Mira and Tae-yong, seated side by side at the head of the table, froze when they saw him. "Seo-jun," Mira said, masking her unease with a tight smile. "What a surprise. You didn't let us know you'd be attending." "Why would I?" Seo-jun replied smoothly, sliding into a seat. "This is my company, isn't it?" The tension in the room thickened. Mira exchanged a quick glance with Tae-yong, whose smirk faltered for a moment. Throughout the meeting, Seo-jun remained silent, his sharp gaze darting from one presentation slide to the next. When Mira spoke about financial projections, he interjected. "I don't like that," he said, pointing to a line on the report. "The numbers don't add up." Mira blinked, caught off guard. "Well, those are preliminary." "Fix it," Seo-jun cut her off, his tone leaving no room for argument. When Tae-yong tried to present, Seo-jun leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing. "That strategy sounds short-sighted. Do better." By the time the meeting ended, the tension was palpable. Mira and Tae-yong lingered, waiting for the room to clear. "Seo-jun," Mira started, her voice low and tight. "What's with this attitude? You've never cared about the company before. You were too busy hiding away, mourning your parents." Tae-yong chimed in, his tone laced with bitterness. "Why are you even here now? You don't understand how things work." Seo-jun tilted his head, his lips curling into a cold smile. "Maybe I didn't care before. But I do now." He reached into his pocket and pulled out the hard drive, holding it up for them to see. "I have this," he said, his voice steady but icy. "And if it contains what I think it does, you're both done." Myra's face paled. Tae-yong's jaw tightened. I'll fire you both, Seo-jun continued, his words like a hammer falling. And if you've been trying to sell off this company, you'll face the consequences. Legally. He didn't wait for their response, turning on his heel and leaving the room. As the door clicked shut behind him, Mira and Tae-yong sat in stunned silence. What the hell just happened? Tae-yong hissed. He's not the same Seo-jun, Mira muttered, her fingers trembling as she reached for her glass of water. He's changed. And he's dangerous now. Tae-yong's face darkened. We have to do something. If he keeps digging, we're finished. Mira nodded, her mind already racing. Then we finish him before he finishes us. Seo-jun dragged himself into the house late that night, his shoulders heavy with exhaustion. His tie hung loose around his neck, and his jacket was slung over one arm. Hyun-soo, who had been waiting in the living room, immediately noticed the weariness etched into his features. You look like you've been through a war, Hyun-soo commented softly, setting down the book he wasn't really reading. Feels like it, Seo-jun muttered, collapsing onto the couch with a long sigh. Hyun-soo hesitated for a moment, then sat down beside him. Rough day at work? You could say that, Seo-jun replied, rubbing his temples. Hyun-soo frowned, his gaze drifting to the tense lines of Seo-jun's face. He wanted to help but wasn't sure how. Is there anything I can do? For a moment, Seo-jun didn't respond. Then he pulled the USB drive from his pocket and held it up. This. It might have the answers I need, but it's locked. I can't crack it. Hyun-soo leaned closer taking the drive, curiosity piqued. Let me try. I'm no expert, but I know a thing or two about computers. You? Seo-jun asked, raising an eyebrow. Don't look so surprised, Hyun-soo said with a small grin. I'm full of hidden talents. The two sat up at the dining table, Hyun-soo pulling out his old laptop while Seo-jun leaned back in his chair, watching him with tired eyes. Are you sure you know what you're doing? Seo-jun asked skeptically as Hyun-soo plugged in the USB. Trust me, Hyun-soo said, though his fingers trembled slightly as he began typing. Well, mostly. Seo-jun chuckled faintly, the sound low and warm despite his fatigue. If you fry it, we're doomed. No pressure, huh? Hyun-soo shot back, stealing a glance at him. But the sight of Seo-jun, sitting there with his head resting on one hand, was distracting. He looked, softer like this, the sharp edges of his usual demeanor dulled by weariness. As the night dragged on, Seo-jun's head began to droop. Hyun-soo glanced up just in time to see him lean back in his chair, his eyes closing. Hey, don't fall asleep on me. Hyun-soo teased, though his voice softened when he realized Seo-jun was already out. He paused, his fingers stilling on the keyboard. Seo-jun's face, so often guarded and unreadable, was relaxed in sleep. He looked younger, almost vulnerable. Hyun-soo's chest tightened as he stared. Get a grip, he told himself. He shook his head and turned back to the laptop, determined to focus. By the time the first rays of dawn broke through the window, Hyun-soo let out a triumphant gasp. Got it. Seo-jun stirred at the sound, his eyes fluttering open. Huh. I cracked it, Hyun-soo said, unable to hide the pride in his voice. You were right. There's everything here, documents, emails, even a plan to sell the company piece by piece. Seo-jun sat up straight, taking the laptop from him. As his eyes scanned the screen, his expression shifted from shock to hurt. They were going to destroy everything my father built, he murmured. And for what? Money? Hyun-soo placed a hand on his shoulder. I'm sorry, Seo-jun. I know they're your family, but this isn't something you can ignore. Seo-jun nodded, his jaw tightening. I'll deal with them. After a long silence, he turned to Hyun-soo. Thank you. For everything. Hyun-soo smiled. It's no big deal. It is, Seo-jun insisted. He hesitated, then added, let me do something for you in return. You said you wanted to go back to school, right? I'll cover your tuition. Whatever you need. Hyunsu's eyes widened. You don't have to. I want to, Seo-jun interrupted, his tone leaving no room for argument. Hyunsu's face broke into a wide grin. Thank you, Seo-jun. This means so much to me. Before the moment could linger, Hyunsu's phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at the screen, and his smile faltered slightly. It's my boyfriend. I should take this. Seo-jun nodded stiffly, watching as Hyunsu stepped outside to answer the call. Alone again, Seo-jun leaned back in his chair, staring at the now cracked USB drive. His chest felt heavy, not just from the betrayal of his family but from the sight of Hyunsu walking away, back to someone else. He clenched his fists, his thoughts a tangle of frustration and longing. How much longer can I keep this up? Thanks for watching. Subscribe. Jun sat at the dining table, his focus unwavering as he typed on his laptop. Beside him, Hyunsu hovered nervously, glancing at the screen every so often. Are you sure this is okay? Hyunsu asked for the 10th time, his voice tinged with both excitement and uncertainty. Seo-jun looked up, his expression softening. I wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't. Now stop pacing. You're making me nervous. Hyunsu froze mid-step, grinning sheepishly. Sorry, I never thought I'd get this far. Thank you, Seo-jun really. When they finally printed out the college application, Hyunsu let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He turned to Seo-jun, his face lighting up with gratitude. I don't know how to repay you for this. You don't have to, Seo-jun replied simply. Just do your best. The next day, Hyunsu was startled to see his mother and younger sister arriving at the mansion, carrying bags of food and small, neatly wrapped gifts. What are you doing here? Hyunsu exclaimed, rushing to meet them at the door. To thank Seo-jun, of course, he's paying for your college tuition, his mother said matter-of-factly, adjusting the flask of homemade side dishes in her hands. Hyunsu's eyes widened in alarm. Mom, you don't need to do this. What if it makes him uncomfortable? Yoonji rolled her eyes, brushing past him. Don't be ridiculous. He helped you. This is the least we can do. Before Hyunsu could argue further, Butler Choi appeared, bowing politely as he held the door open. Welcome. Please, come in. Despite his initial hesitation, Seo-jun greeted them warmly. You didn't have to go through so much trouble, he said, accepting the bag of food from Hyunsu's mother. It's no trouble at all, she replied, her smile warm and genuine. You've done so much for my son. This is just a small way to say thank you. Yoonji chimed in, placing the gifts on the coffee table. And we wanted to see this famous mansion. It's even more amazing than Hyunsu described. The normally quiet house seemed to come alive with their presence. Seo-jun found himself relaxing in their company, a rare smile playing on his lips as Hyunsu's mother fussed over him, insisting he eat more of her cooking. Even Butler Choi, who rarely showed emotion, appeared to be in high spirits. He chuckled softly as Hyunsu's sister peppered him with questions about the house and its history. Does this chandelier ever fall? She asked, pointing to the massive crystal fixture in the dining room. Butler Choi shook his head, amused. Not yet, miss. But let's hope it never does. Hyunsu watched from the sidelines, a mix of embarrassment and pride swelling in his chest. He couldn't help but smile as he saw how easily Seo-jun interacted with his family. His younger sister had him laughing openly as she shared exaggerated tales of Hyunsu's childhood misadventures. The sight was surreal, Seo-jun, usually so composed and reserved, laughing freely, his entire demeanor softened. By the time they sat down for dinner, the atmosphere was lively and warm, the once intimidating mansion transformed into a space filled with joy and connection. Hyun-soo's mother raised her glass of wine, her voice full of sincerity. "To Seo-jun, for being so kind to my son. Thank you." Seo-jun inclined his head, his voice low but earnest. "I should be the one thanking you. Your family brings a light to this house I didn't realize it needed." Hyun-soo's chest tightened at those words, his gratitude for Seo-jun growing deeper. For the first time in a long time, everything felt right. Dinner was a lively affair. Plates of food, both from home and prepared by butler Choi, were passed around as conversation flowed easily. Seo-jun blended seamlessly, sharing polite laughs with Hyun-soo's mother and indulging his sister's endless questions about the mansion. At one point, his sister leaned forward, her eyes twinkling mischievously. "So, Seo-jun, do you have a girlfriend? Or maybe a boyfriend?" Hyun-soo nearly choked on his food. "Ji-eun. What? It's just a question," she said innocently, her gaze flicking back to Seo-jun, "because, you know, if you're into guys, my brother would be a great choice. He's sweet, hardworking, and..." "Ji-eun." Hyun-soo's face was burning now as he waved his hands frantically, trying to stop her. Unfazed, she continued, "And honestly, his boyfriend is a jerk. Jin-ho never calls, never visits, and doesn't even care about him. I say dump him." "Ji-eun, stop it." Hyun-soo hissed, his embarrassment reaching its peak. Seo-jun's expression was unreadable, but his eyes flicked toward Hyun-soo briefly before he said, "It sounds like you care about your brother a lot." "Of course I do," Ji-eun replied, crossing her arms. "And I hate seeing him with someone who doesn't appreciate him. Right, Mom?" Their mother, clearly sensing the tension, finally intervened. "That's enough, Ji-eun. We're guests here. Let's not embarrass your brother any further." Ji-eun huffed but relented, and the conversation shifted back to lighter topics. Hyun-soo glanced at Seo-jun, muttering a quiet apology, but Seo-jun simply gave him a small, reassuring smile. As the evening wound down, Seo-jun turned to Hyun-soo's mother. "You should stay the night. It's late, and the drive back won't be easy." "Oh, we couldn't impose," she began, but Seo-jun waved her concerns away. "It's no trouble. There are plenty of rooms, and butler Choi will ensure you're comfortable." The cool night air brushed against Hyun-soo's skin as he wandered through the sprawling garden, his arms wrapped around himself for warmth. The quiet of the mansion was almost suffocating, and his thoughts were louder than ever. His sister's words replayed in his mind, cutting through the stillness like a sharp blade. "Why are you holding on to a failed relationship?" She wasn't wrong, he realized. It had been months since he'd seen Jin-ho, and even longer since he'd felt genuinely connected to him. The unanswered calls, the lack of effort, it all weighed heavy on his heart. Lost in thought, he didn't notice the soft footsteps behind him until Seo-jun's voice broke the silence. "Can't sleep?" Hyun-soo turned to find Seo-jun standing a few steps away, his hands casually tucked into his pockets. His face, illuminated by the soft glow of the garden lights, looked calm yet curious. "No," Hyun-soo admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I guess I have a lot on my mind." Seo-jun took a step closer. "Want to talk about it?" For a moment, Hyun-soo hesitated. But then, the words spilled out, unfiltered and raw. "It's Jin-ho. I don't know anymore. It's been so long since we've seen each other, and I'm starting to feel like I'm holding on to something that's not even there. It's like I'm chasing a ghost of what we used to be." Seo-jun's expression softened, and he took another step forward, now standing beside Hyun-soo. "That sounds exhausting." Hyun-soo nodded, staring down at his feet. "It is. I feel insecure, like I'm not enough. And maybe that's why he's so distant." There was a pause, heavy with unspoken thoughts, before Seo-jun spoke again, his voice careful but firm. Have you ever thought about letting go? About starting over with someone who actually sees you? Hyun-soo looked up, startled by the question. What do you mean? Seo-jun hesitated, as if weighing his next words carefully. But then, something shifted in his expression, an openness, a vulnerability. I mean, if someone else cared for you, someone who wanted to be with you, would you give them a chance? Hyun-soo's breath caught. Before he could process the weight of the question, Seo-jun closed the distance between them. His gaze searched Hyun-soo's, as if seeking permission, and then, without another word, he leaned in. The kiss was soft, hesitant, but it sent a jolt through Hyun-soo's entire being. For a fleeting moment, he found himself responding, his hands gripping Seo-jun's sleeves as if to anchor himself. But reality came crashing down just as quickly. He pulled away, his heart pounding. I can't, he stammered, his voice thick with guilt. I can't do this. I can't double date. Seo-jun stepped back, his face unreadable, but the hurt in his eyes was unmistakable. I'm sorry, Hyun-soo whispered before turning and walking away, his emotions in turmoil. Inside the mansion, Hyun-soo paced his room, replaying the moment over and over again. His lips still tingled from the kiss, and he hated how much he'd enjoyed it. Meanwhile, Seo-jun sat alone in the study, a bottle of whiskey on the table beside him. Each sip burned, but it wasn't enough to drown the ache in his chest. Unrequited love, he muttered bitterly, staring into the amber liquid. Why did I even hope? Hours later, Hyun-soo found himself wandering again, this time to the living room. He stopped short when he saw Seo-jun sprawled on the couch, an empty bottle by his side. Seo-jun. Hyun-soo approached cautiously, only to hear him mumble in his sleep. Why couldn't he choose me? Seo-jun's voice was slurred, heavy with the weight of his emotions. Hyun-soo froze, his heart twisting painfully. He stood there, watching the man who had just turned his world upside down, and wondered how everything had gotten so complicated. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more episodes. Sunlight streamed through the curtains, warming Seo-jun's face as he stirred awake. His head throbbed from the alcohol, and for a moment, he was disoriented. Blinking, he realized he wasn't in his room but on the living room couch. And then he noticed Hyun-soo. The younger man was curled up beside him, his head tilted awkwardly against the couch's armrest, his chest rising and falling with soft breaths. Seo-jun's heart tightened. Why is he so close? He thought, memories of the previous night flooding back. The kiss, the rejection, the ache that followed, it all felt like a cruel reminder of the boundaries between them. Seo-jun carefully shifted, trying not to disturb Hyun-soo. His hand hovered briefly near Hyun-soo's, the temptation to touch him overwhelming. But he clenched his fist, pulling back. No, he whispered to himself, standing up slowly. I can't let this happen again. He retreated to his room, splashing cold water on his face in an attempt to clear his thoughts. He looked at his reflection in the mirror, his jaw tightening as he made a silent vow. Forget it. Forget the confession, the kiss, everything. He doesn't feel the same, and that's okay. Just be his boss. Nothing more. Meanwhile, Hyun-soo stirred awake to find the couch empty. He sat up, rubbing his eyes, and looked around. Did Seo-jun leave without waking me? A pang of guilt gnawed at him. He couldn't stop thinking about the kiss and how he had pulled away. He wasn't sure what he felt, but one thing was certain, he hated the awkwardness that now lingered between them. Hyun-soo, Butler Choi's voice startled him, snapping him out of his thoughts. Oh. Mr. Choi, Hyun-soo said, quickly standing up. It's time to start your tasks for the day, the butler said, his tone as polite as ever. But there was something in his eyes, a knowing glint that made Hyun-soo uneasy. Sure, Hyun-soo replied, scratching the back of his neck. As he shuffled toward the kitchen, Mr. Choi cleared his throat. By the way, he said casually, it was quite the unexpected moment last night. Hyun-soo froze, his face heating up. What do you mean? The butler raised an eyebrow, a hint of a smirk on his lips. The kiss. Hyun-soo's heart sank into his stomach. You saw that? I couldn't help it. I was passing by, Mr. Choi said, his expression carefully neutral now. Don't worry, I'm not one to gossip. But perhaps you and Mr. Seo-jun should talk. Hyun-soo stammered incoherently, too mortified to form a proper response. He excused himself hastily, nearly bumping into his mother and Eun-ji as they entered the hallway. There you are, his mother said cheerfully. We were just about to let you know, we're heading back home today. What? Already? Hyun-soo asked, frowning. Eun-ji chimed in, yeah, we've imposed enough. Besides, Mom has work, and I have school. Before Hyun-soo could respond, Seo-jun appeared at the end of the hall, freshly dressed and composed. Leaving so soon? He asked, his voice warm but slightly reserved. Eun-ji grinned. Yes, Mr. Seo-jun. We've taken up enough of your time. Nonsense, Seo-jun said, stepping closer. At least stay for breakfast. It's the least I can do. Hyun-soo glanced at Seo-jun, his guilt deepening at how calm and polite he seemed. There was no trace of the vulnerability he'd seen last night, no hint of the man who had confessed his feelings. His mother beamed. That's so kind of you, Mr. Seo-jun. We'd love to. As they all made their way to the dining room, Hyun-soo couldn't shake the uneasy feeling in his chest. He stole a glance at Seo-jun, who was busy chatting with Eun-ji. Seo-jun's laughter echoed softly in the space, his smile lighting up the room. It was genuine, easy, and completely devoid of the tension that had hung between them the night before. He's really good at hiding his emotions, Hyun-soo thought, his heart sinking further. As they sat down to eat, he wondered how much of last night Seo-jun would bury, and if things could ever go back to how they were. The clinking of cutlery against plates was the only sound punctuating the breakfast table, where an awkward tension hung like a thick fog. Seo-jun kept his gaze firmly fixed on his food, his usually poised demeanor betrayed by the occasional glance at Hyun-soo, who sat stiffly across from him. Hyun-soo's mother and Eun-ji exchanged subtle looks, clearly picking up on the unease between the two. Eun-ji, never one to hold back her curiosity, finally broke the silence. What's going on with you two? She asked, her gaze darting between Seo-jun and Hyun-soo. Hyun-soo nearly choked on his coffee, and Seo-jun's grip on his fork tightened imperceptibly. Eun-ji, her mother scolded, giving her a stern look. That's none of your business. Stop being so nosy, and so mature for your age. Eun-ji pouted but didn't push further, though her smirk hinted she wasn't entirely convinced by the dismissive responses. When the meal ended, the family gathered their things to leave. Hyun-soo helped his mother with her bag while Eun-ji gave Mr. Choi an exaggerated curtsy that made him chuckle. At the door, Hyun-soo's mother pulled him aside. Her voice was low but firm. Whatever tension is going on between you and Mr. Seo-jun, resolve it, Hyun-soo. It's written all over both of your faces, and it's not healthy to leave things unresolved. Hyun-soo nodded stiffly, avoiding her penetrating gaze. He hugged her tightly, murmuring a quick goodbye before she and Eun-ji disappeared into their taxi. Seo-jun sat alone in his office, staring at the USB drive on his desk. Thoughts of Mira and Tae-yong swirled in his mind like a storm, their betrayal still a raw wound. His jaw clenched as he leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. Tae-yong's wedding, he thought bitterly. That'll be the perfect stage to expose them for who they really are. His musings were interrupted by a hesitant knock on the door. Come in, he called, his voice even but weary. Hyun-soo entered cautiously, shutting the door behind him. He seemed to hesitate before stepping forward, his usual confidence dimmed by the weight of the conversation they were about to have. "Do you have a moment to talk?" Hyun-soo asked. Seo-jun gestured for him to sit, his expression unreadable. "What is it?" Hyun-soo sat but didn't immediately speak, fidgeting with the hem of his shirt. Finally, he took a deep breath. "About the kiss," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. Seo-jun stiffened slightly, but his face betrayed no emotion. "What about it?" I hope it doesn't change things between us," Hyun-soo said quickly. "I mean, I don't want it to affect how you've been helping me. I really appreciate everything you've done, and I don't want this to." "Stop," Seo-jun interrupted gently, his tone soft but firm. "Hyun-soo, I'm not that petty. My feelings are mine to deal with, and they won't interfere with how I treat you." Hyun-soo's eyes widened slightly, surprised by Seo-jun's calm response. "Even if you don't return my feelings," Seo-jun continued, a faint, bittersweet smile tugging at his lips, "I'll still treat you well. I promise to help you, and I'll keep that promise. You don't need to worry about that." Hyun-soo swallowed hard, guilt bubbling in his chest. "Thank you," he said quietly. Thank you for clarifying." Seo-jun nodded, his gaze briefly meeting Hyun-soo's before shifting back to the papers on his desk. As Hyun-soo left the office, his heart felt heavier than before. Seo-jun's words were kind and selfless, but they only deepened the guilt that gnawed at him. He wasn't sure what he felt anymore, but one thing was clear, he hated the idea of hurting Seo-jun, even unintentionally. Hyun-soo sat on the edge of his bed, his phone clutched tightly in his trembling hands. The conversation he dreaded was only a call away. With a deep breath, he tapped on In-ho's name, the screen displaying a smiling picture of them from what felt like a lifetime ago. The phone rang. Once. Twice. No answer. Hyun-soo's chest tightened as the seconds stretched into an eternity. Finally, just as he was about to hang up, the line connected. "Hello." In-ho's voice came through, low and almost indifferent. "In-ho," Hyun-soo's voice cracked, his throat tight with unshed tears. I needed to talk to you." There was silence on the other end, heavy and suffocating. "In-ho," Hyun-soo tried again, his words spilling out in a rush, "I need to know where we stand. It's been so long, and I feel like I don't matter to you at all. I don't know what's happening between us, and it's killing me." A sigh came through the line, weary and reluctant. "Hyun-soo, I've been busy. You know that. Too busy to even call me." Hyun-soo's voice broke, the tears he had been holding back finally slipping down his cheeks. "I've tried so hard to be patient, but I can't keep pretending this is okay. Do you even want to be with me anymore?" Another pause. This one felt like a knife twisting in his chest. "Let's meet," In-ho finally said, his tone resigned. "We'll talk in person." Hyun-soo's heart leaped and sank all at once. Relief at the prospect of seeing In-ho mixed with a growing sense of dread. "Okay," he whispered. "When?" "Tonight," In-ho replied. "I'll text you the place." The call ended, leaving Hyun-soo staring at his phone, his mind racing. After finishing his chores, Hyun-soo approached Seo-jun hesitantly in his study. "Mr. Seo-jun," he began, his voice careful, "I need to leave early tonight. It's personal." Seo-jun looked up from his work, his expression unreadable. For a moment, Hyun-soo thought he might say no, but then Seo-jun nodded. "All right," he said, leaning back in his chair. "But before you go, I need to tell you something." Hyun-soo froze, his nerves already frayed. "You don't need to work as a servant here anymore," Seo-jun said, his tone calm but firm. "I want you to focus on studying and getting into college. That's what's important." Hyun-soo's eyes widened. "But..." "No buts," Seo-jun interrupted gently. This is something I want to do for you. You have potential, Hyun-soo. Don't waste it. The sincerity in Seo Jun's words made Hyun-soo's chest ache. Thank you, he murmured, bowing his head to hide the guilt gnawing at him. As he left the mansion, Hyun-soo couldn't shake the heavy feeling in his heart. The meeting spot was a quiet cafe tucked into a side street, dimly lit and nearly empty. Hyun-soo arrived early, his nerves making it impossible to sit still. He checked his phone repeatedly, waiting for In-ho's arrival. The bell above the door jingled, and Hyun-soo turned, his breath catching in his throat. Standing in the doorway, dressed sharply and exuding his usual air of confidence, was In-ho, or rather, Tae-yong. His boyfriend. In-ho, he whispered, his voice barely audible. The man smiled, his expression chillingly casual. It's been a while, hasn't it, Hyun-soo? Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more episodes. In the cafe was unbearable. Hyun-soo sat rigidly in his chair, staring at Tae-yong, In-ho, as he knew him. His heart pounded in his chest, not from sadness but from the sheer weight of the moment. Tae-yong's cold expression felt foreign, far removed from the man Hyun-soo had once adored. Tae-yong leaned back in his chair, his arms crossed, his words slicing through the silence like a blade. I think it's time we end this. Hyun-soo blinked, his stomach tightening. What? I'm getting married, Tae-yong said bluntly, his tone devoid of any emotion. It's better if we break up now. The words hung in the air, heavy and sharp. Hyun-soo felt a strange mix of disbelief and resignation. Part of him had seen this coming, Tae-yong's growing distance, his curt replies, the excuses for not meeting. Yet hearing it spoken aloud was still jarring. You're getting married? Hyun-soo echoed, his voice steadier than he expected. Yes, Tae-yong replied, his gaze unwavering. And before you start begging or crying, let's just accept it and move on. Hyun-soo's lips twitched into a humorless smile. Begging? Crying? He shook his head, a surprising calm washing over him. No, Tae-yong, I'm not doing that anymore. Tae-yong frowned, visibly taken aback. What? I just needed to know where we stood, Hyun-soo said, his voice soft but firm. So I wouldn't make the mistake of two-timing someone. Tae-yong's eyes narrowed, his calm exterior cracking ever so slightly. Two-timing, he repeated, his voice laced with jealousy. Is there someone else? Hyun-soo met his gaze, unflinching. Does it matter? Tae-yong leaned forward, his tone sharpening. Of course it matters. He stopped himself, frustration flashing across his face. Hyun-soo didn't flinch. For the first time in their relationship, he felt like he had the upper hand. You've made your decision, Tae-yong, he said, standing up. And now I've made mine. Goodbye. He turned and walked out of the cafe, his steps purposeful but heavy. Once he was far enough away, his calm facade shattered. He stumbled to the side of the street, his breath hitching as the tears came. The reality of it all hit him at once, years of love, trust, and longing crumbling into nothing. Yet, even as he cried, there was a strange sense of relief. Tae-yong's indifference had been eating away at him for so long, and now, it was over. In the middle of his breakdown, a thought surfaced unbidden, Seo Jun. He sniffed, wiping his face with the sleeve of his jacket. The image of Seo Jun's warm smile and steady presence calmed the storm in his chest, even if just a little. For the first time in a long while, Hyun-soo felt like he was stepping out of a shadow, leaving behind the remnants of a love that no longer served him. With one last deep breath, he straightened up and began the walk back to the mansion, unsure of what the future held but determined to face it. Seo Jun paced the grand living room, his frustration mounting with every passing minute. The rhythmic clicking of his shoes against the polished floor echoed through the mansion, a sharp contrast to Butler Choi's calm voice attempting to soothe him. Sir, I'm sure he'll be back soon, Butler Choi said gently. That's not the point, Seo Jun snapped, running a hand through his hair. It's late, and he should have been home hours ago. Butler Choi wisely stepped back, allowing Seo Jun to stew in his worry. When the sound of the front door opening reached his ears, Seo Jun whirled around, his relief quickly overshadowed by irritation. Hyun-soo shuffled in, his shoulders hunched, his face pale. Where have you been? Seo Jun started, his voice sharp. Do you have any idea? But his words caught in his throat when he saw Hyun-soo's expression. The young man's eyes were red-rimmed, his face drawn with exhaustion and something heavier, hurt. Seo Jun's frustration melted into concern. He swallowed his anger and instead gestured toward the staircase. Go to your room, he said softly. Get some rest. Hyun-soo nodded wordlessly, trudging up the stairs, leaving Seo Jun standing there, wrestling with the urge to press for answers. The following morning, Seo Jun was up early, his usual routine falling into place. But as he sat at the breakfast table, sipping his coffee, Butler Choi approached, his face uncharacteristically worried. Sir, Hyun-soo hasn't come down yet, Butler Choi said. Seo Jun frowned. He's usually up before me. That's what's strange, Butler Choi added. I knocked on his door earlier, but there was no response. Seo Jun shot up from his seat, a cold knot forming in his stomach. He strode briskly to Hyun-soo's room, knocking firmly on the door. Hyun-soo. Are you in there? Silence. The knot tightened. He turned to Butler Choi, his voice urgent. Give me the spare key. Butler Choi hesitated briefly before retrieving the key from his pocket and handing it over. Seo Jun wasted no time unlocking the door and pushing it open. The sight before him froze him in place. Hyun-soo lay curled up on the bed, his body trembling beneath the blanket. His face was flushed, his breathing shallow, and his usually bright eyes fluttered weakly as he tried to look up. Hyun-soo. Seo Jun rushed to his side, his heart pounding. Seo Jun, Hyun-soo mumbled, barely audible. Without a second thought, Seo Jun scooped him up, ignoring how limp Hyun-soo felt in his arms. We're going to the hospital, he said firmly, glancing at Butler Choi, who followed closely behind. At the hospital, Seo Jun paced the waiting area, his earlier impatience replaced with helpless worry. When the doctor finally approached, Seo Jun was at his side in an instant. How is he? Seo Jun asked, his voice low but filled with urgency. He's suffering from severe emotional and physical exhaustion, the doctor explained. His body simply couldn't handle the stress. He needs complete rest, no work, no stress, just time to recover. Seo Jun nodded, relief mingling with concern. The doctor hesitated before adding, forgive me for asking, but what's your relationship with him? Seo Jun's chest tightened. He opened his mouth, but the truth came out like a bitter pill. He's my housekeeper. The doctor raised an eyebrow but said nothing, simply offering a reassuring nod. Seo Jun sighed, running a hand over his face. Housekeeper. It felt wrong to reduce Hyun-soo to such a title after everything. I'll make sure he's taken care of, Seo Jun said firmly. He returned to Hyun-soo's room, where the young man lay on the hospital bed, looking small and fragile. Sitting beside him, Seo Jun reached out, gently brushing a stray lock of hair from Hyun-soo's forehead. You're going to be okay, he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. You have to be. The hospital room was quiet save for the steady hum of the machines monitoring Hyun-soo's vitals. Hyun-soo lay propped up in the bed, the faint smell of antiseptic lingering in the air. Across the room, Seo Jun was perched on a chair, typing furiously on his laptop, his phone balanced precariously on his shoulder as he spoke to his secretary, Yoon. I apologize for missing the meeting in person, Seo Jun said, his tone curt but polite. I had an urgent matter to attend to. Yoon's voice crackled on the other end, confirming that the video meeting with the board was set up. Seo Jun ended the call and quickly logged into the virtual conference, his expression shifting to one of calm authority. On the screen, his Aunt Mina's sharp features appeared, followed by Tae-yong's smug smirk. Their coldness was palpable even through the monitor. Seo Jun, you've missed quite a few important discussions lately, Mina said, her voice dripping with condescension. Tae-yong chimed in, yes, cousin, perhaps someone else should take the reins if you're too distracted. Seo Jun met their veiled jabs with an unwavering gaze. I assure you, I'm fully capable of handling my responsibilities, he said firmly. After the meeting concluded, Seo Jun called Yoon again. Keep an eye on my aunt and Tae-yong. I don't trust them not to make a move while I'm away. Yes, sir, Yoon replied, his tone crisp. Meanwhile, Hyun-soo couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt. He glanced at Seo Jun, who had shifted back to his chair after the call. You didn't have to miss work for me, he said quietly, fiddling with the edge of his blanket. Seo Jun glanced up, a small smile playing on his lips. It's not a big deal. I always miss work. Now's not the first time nor will it be the last. Hyun-soo opened his mouth to argue but was cut off when Seo Jun stood and extended a hand. Come on, let's get you moving a bit. Doctor's orders, right? With Seo Jun's help, Hyun-soo managed to take a few wobbly steps. They stumbled together when Hyun-soo nearly lost his balance, both laughing at their awkward coordination. Not bad for someone who couldn't even sit up this morning, Seo Jun teased, his grin wide. Thanks to you, Hyun-soo replied, his voice tinged with gratitude. Their camaraderie didn't go unnoticed by the nurses, who exchanged knowing smiles as they passed by. Such a cute couple, one of them whispered, loud enough for both of them to hear. Hyun-soo's cheeks flushed, and Seo Jun cleared his throat, feigning nonchalance. That evening, Seo Jun returned with a tray of food, setting it down in front of Hyun-soo. Eat, he commanded gently. As they ate, Seo Jun leaned back in his chair, his expression softening. Hyun-soo, you need to talk to me. What's really been going on? Hyun-soo hesitated, the weight of his emotions pressing on him. I broke up with my boyfriend, or rather, he broke up with me, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. It's been hard, but I know I have to move on. Seo Jun's face lit up with a smile that he quickly tried to suppress. Hyun-soo caught it and couldn't help but tease. You're happy, aren't you? That I broke up with In-ho. Seo Jun's ears turned red as he shook his head vigorously. I'm not happy about your pain, he insisted. But, I won't deny it gives me some hope. Hyun-soo arched a brow, surprised. But, Seo Jun continued, his voice steady, I won't take advantage of your vulnerability. I've decided to give up. I can't keep putting you in an awkward position. Hyun-soo's heart sank, the ache in his chest catching him off guard. Oh, was all he managed to say. That night, Seo Jun dozed off in the chair beside Hyun-soo's bed, his head tilted at an uncomfortable angle. Hyun-soo watched him, the soft glow of the bedside lamp illuminating his features. He sighed, his thoughts swirling. How do I tell him? How do I explain that I might feel the same without him thinking I'm just choosing him because I have no one else? Hyun-soo turned onto his side, staring out the window at the city lights. His resolve hardened. He needed to be sure of his feelings, not just for Seo Jun's sake, but for his own. The morning sunlight streamed through the hospital room window, casting a soft glow on the neatly arranged space. Hyun-soo was sipping on a lukewarm cup of tea when the door creaked open, and his mother walked in. Her familiar presence brought both comfort and a pang of guilt to his chest. You're here. Seo Jun greeted her. Mom, Hyun-soo said, setting the cup down. What are you doing here? She approached with a gentle smile, placing her handbag on the chair beside his bed. Seo Jun called me, she said simply, her eyes briefly darting to where Seo Jun stood by the window, scrolling through his phone. Hyun-soo's cheeks tinged pink as he glanced over at Seo-jun. "He didn't have to do that," he murmured, fiddling with his blanket. "Don't be mad," his mother said, taking a seat beside him. "He was just worried about you, as any decent person would be." There was a knowing tone to her voice that Hyun-soo chose to ignore. As they settled into conversation, Hyun-soo hesitated before revealing the news. "Mom, I broke up with him, with In-ho," he said quietly. His mother's brows lifted in surprise, but the relief in her expression was unmistakable. Finally, she said with a small laugh. "I was wondering how long it would take for you to see what I've always known." Hyun-soo looked up at her, confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, In-ho was never good enough for you," she said, her voice firm. "You deserved someone who values you, who lifts you up, not someone who constantly pulls you down." Hyun-soo swallowed hard, her words hitting closer to home than he cared to admit. It didn't take long for his mother to notice the way Hyun-soo's eyes kept drifting toward Seo-jun. Every time Seo-jun moved, Hyun-soo's gaze followed, and the faintest flicker of a smile would play on his lips before he quickly masked it. "Hyun-soo," his mother said, her voice tinged with amusement. "Are you going to tell me what's really going on between you and him?" Hyun-soo froze, his cheeks burning. "What?" "Nothing's going on," he stammered, looking anywhere but at her. She leaned in slightly, lowering her voice. "You may be able to fool yourself, but you can't fool me. It's obvious how you feel about him." Hyun-soo sighed, his shoulders slumping. "I don't know, Mom. I rejected him when he confessed, and now. I don't think I can just turn around and say I feel the same. It'll seem fake." His mother reached over, placing a comforting hand on his. "Hyun-soo, you don't have to rush anything. But don't lie to yourself either. Be honest about your feelings, and the rest will fall into place." He nodded slowly, though the embarrassment lingered. "I'll handle it," he said softly. A faint cough escaped his mother, and she covered her mouth with a tissue. Hyun-soo's concern immediately spiked. "Mom, are you okay?" She waved him off with a small smile. "I'm fine, just a little tired. I should get going anyway, Eun-ji has school, and I need to rest." Hyun-soo frowned but didn't push. "Let me know if you feel worse, okay?" She nodded, leaning down to press a kiss to his forehead. "Take care of yourself, and think about what I said." As she left, Hyun-soo leaned back against his pillows, his mind swirling with her words. Across the room, Seo-jun glanced up from his phone, their eyes meeting briefly. Hyun-soo's heart skipped a beat, and he couldn't help but wonder if his mother was right. The warm afternoon sun filtered through the car windows as Seo-jun drove Hyun-soo home from the hospital. The atmosphere between them was lighter than it had been in days, though an undercurrent of unspoken words lingered. "We'll stop by the mall," Seo-jun said casually, breaking the silence. "I need to pick up a few things." "Anything you want?" Hyun-soo hesitated, glancing out the window. Ice cream," he mumbled shyly, his fingers fidgeting with the hem of his shirt. Seo-jun glanced at him with a soft smile. "Ice cream it is. Stay here. I'll be quick." When they arrived at the mall, Seo-jun parked and strode toward the entrance, leaving Hyun-soo in the car. Hyun-soo leaned back against the seat, watching him through the windshield. As Seo-jun disappeared into the crowd, Hyun-soo's gaze wandered idly, until he spotted a young woman approaching Seo-jun near the entrance just as he was coming out. She was strikingly beautiful, her long hair cascading over her shoulders, and she wore a radiant smile as she called out to him. To Hyun-soo's dismay, Seo-jun's entire demeanor changed the moment he saw her. His eyes lit up, and an easy grin spread across his face. He greeted her warmly, their exchange brimming with familiarity and fondness. Hyun-soo's stomach tightened as he watched them talk. The way Seo-jun laughed, the way his posture relaxed, Hyun-soo had never seen him like that before. Jealousy bloomed uninvited, tugging at his chest. His fingers gripped the edge of his seat as he tried to look away, but his eyes betrayed him, darting back to the scene outside. Who is she? Hyun-soo wondered, biting his lip. He hated the way the question consumed him, the way his emotions spiraled. Inside the car, the air felt heavier, and Hyun-soo's mind raced with unspoken thoughts. Why do I care so much? As Seo-jun and the woman continued their conversation, Hyun-soo sank lower in his seat, unable to shake the sinking feeling in his heart. Seo-jun returned to the car, a cheerful expression on his face as he carried a small bag with the ice cream Hyun-soo had requested. But before he climbed in, Hyun-soo had already seen it, the young woman kissing Seo-jun on the cheek before walking away, her laughter lingering in the air like an unwelcome melody. Hyun-soo's jaw clenched. He fixed his gaze out the window, unwilling to meet Seo-jun's eyes as he slid into the driver's seat. Here's your ice cream, Seo-jun said, holding out the bag with a smile. Hyun-soo didn't respond. Instead, he crossed his arms, his expression as cold as the treat he was refusing. Seo-jun frowned, lowering the bag. What's wrong? You asked for this. I'm not hungry, Hyun-soo snapped, still refusing to look at him. Seo-jun blinked in confusion. You were excited about it just a minute ago. Did something happen? Nothing happened, Hyun-soo shot back, his tone sharp enough to cut through the tension in the car. The cheerful energy Seo-jun had brought back dissipated instantly. The drive back to the mansion was steeped in silence, the air between them thick with unspoken frustration. Seo-jun glanced at Hyun-soo every now and then, trying to gauge his mood, but Hyun-soo stubbornly avoided his gaze, biting the inside of his cheek to keep his emotions in check. Why am I acting like this? Hyun-soo thought bitterly, hating the way his jealousy made him feel irrational and petty. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't erase the image of the woman's kiss from his mind, or the way Seo-jun had smiled at her. When they arrived at the mansion, Butler Choi was the first to greet them at the door. His keen eyes immediately picked up on the tension hanging over them. Welcome back, he said, his gaze flicking between the two. Hyun-soo, how are you feeling? You still look pale. I'm fine, Hyun-soo mumbled, brushing past him. Clearly not, Butler Choi muttered under his breath, watching the young man stomp toward his room. Then he turned to Seo-jun. What happened? Seo-jun sighed, running a hand through his hair. I have no idea. 1 minute he was fine, and now he's like this. Butler Choi hummed thoughtfully, his expression unreadable. Later, Butler Choi found Hyun-soo alone in the library, aimlessly flipping through a book. You seem troubled, he said, sitting across from him. It's nothing, Hyun-soo muttered. Does this nothing have to do with Mr. Seo-jun? Hyun-soo stiffened, his fingers tightening around the book. Why would you think that? Butler Choi smiled knowingly. You seemed upset when you arrived. Did you see something you didn't like? Hyun-soo hesitated, debating whether to confide in him. Finally, he sighed. There was a woman. She kissed him on the cheek. Ah, Butler Choi said, his tone neutral but his eyes twinkling with understanding. And this upset you? Hyun-soo frowned, heat rising to his cheeks. I'm not upset, he lied. It's just, weird. Butler Choi nodded slowly, hiding his amusement. I see. Well, if it's bothering you, perhaps you should figure out why. Hyun-soo opened his mouth to respond, but Butler Choi stood up before he could say anything, patting him on the shoulder. Take your time. Emotions can be complicated. As the butler walked away, Hyun-soo slumped in his chair, burying his face in his hands. Why do I care so much? Seo-jun paced his bedroom, Hyun-soo's coldness lingering in his mind like an unsolvable puzzle. Ever since their return, Hyun-soo had been distant, polite, but clipped. No teasing remarks, no shy smiles, not even the usual quiet gratitude that Seo Jun had grown fond of. What did I do wrong? He thought for the umpteenth time, his brow furrowing. The memory of Hannah resurfaced, her bright smile and the kiss on his cheek. His chest tightened with a mix of realization and disbelief. Could Hyun-soo have seen them? Was that why he was upset? Seo Jun shook his head, brushing the thought aside. No way, he muttered to himself. Hyun-soo had been clear about his feelings, or lack thereof. He had rejected Seo Jun's confession without hesitation. There was no reason for him to be jealous of Hannah, of all people. Still, the idea lingered, unwelcome but persistent, like a melody he couldn't get out of his head. Just then, his phone buzzed on the nightstand. The screen lit up with Hannah's name. Hello, he answered, trying to sound neutral. Seo Jun. Hannah's voice was cheerful, almost too much so. I was just thinking about you. I was wondering if you'd like to grab dinner tonight. Catch up properly. Seo Jun hesitated, her request setting off a ripple of irritation. He knew what she wanted, it had been obvious since their college days. Hannah had liked him, maybe even more than liked him. But he'd never been able to return her feelings, no matter how much she tried. It wasn't her fault. She was kind, smart, and beautiful, any man would be lucky to have her. But Seo Jun had never been interested in women. He was gay, and he'd made peace with that a long time ago. Hannah, he began, his tone firm but not unkind. I know you're busy, she interrupted quickly, but it's just one dinner. Please. For old time's sake. Seo Jun sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. It was clear she hadn't picked up on his signals in the past, or maybe she had and chosen to ignore them. Either way, this needed to stop. Okay, he relented, surprising himself. Really? Her excitement was palpable. Yes. Let's meet. But, he added, his voice steady, there's something I need to tell you. There was a pause, then a nervous laugh. Sounds serious. Should I be worried? No, Seo Jun replied. But it's important. I'll see you at dinner. As he hung up, Seo Jun exhaled deeply, steeling himself. It was time to be honest, no matter how uncomfortable it might be. He owed it to her, and to himself. Seo Jun adjusted his jacket in the mirror, smoothing out the lapels before grabbing his phone and wallet. He headed downstairs, his thoughts already on the conversation he was about to have with Hannah. In the dining room, butler Choi greeted him with his usual composure. Sir, your dinner is ready. Shall I bring it to the table? Seo Jun shook his head. Not tonight, butler Choi. I have somewhere to be. As he turned toward the door, a voice stopped him in his tracks. Where are you going? Seo Jun turned, surprised to see Hyun-soo standing in the hallway, his arms crossed tightly over his chest. His expression was guarded, but there was a flicker of something deeper, something raw, in his eyes. I have a meeting, Seo Jun said cautiously. With who? Hyun-soo pressed, his voice more demanding than usual. Seo Jun hesitated for a moment before answering. Hannah, my old friend. We ran into each other earlier, and she asked me to dinner. I thought it would be a good opportunity to. Don't go, Hyun-soo blurted out, cutting him off. Seo Jun froze, genuinely taken aback. What? I said, don't go, Hyun-soo repeated, his voice firmer this time. His jaw was clenched, and his hands balled into fists at his sides. Seo Jun stared at him, trying to make sense of the sudden outburst. Hyun-soo, why do you care if I go or not? Sensing the incoming whirlwind about to explode, butler Choi exited the room with a polite bow. The heavy silence between Hyun-soo and Seo Jun became almost unbearable. Seo Jun turned to face him fully, his expression a mixture of confusion and curiosity. Did you see me with Hannah earlier? Seo Jun asked gently. Hyun-soo nodded, his throat tightening. I did. And, you didn't like it? No, I didn't, Hyun-soo admitted, his voice wavering slightly. Seo Jun frowned, searching his face. Why, Hyun-soo? Why would it bother you so much? Hyun-soo took a deep breath, knowing this was his moment. If he didn't say it now, Seo Jun would leave, and he couldn't bear the thought. He clenched his fists, willing himself to be brave. Because I'm jealous, he confessed, his voice raw with vulnerability. I hated seeing you with her, laughing and smiling like that. It hurt because I want to be the one who makes you smile like that. Seo Jun's eyes widened in shock, his lips parting as if to say something, but no words came out. I know this must be confusing, Hyun-soo continued, the words spilling out now that he had started. Especially after how I rejected you before. And you're right, I did reject you. Not because I didn't feel anything for you, but because I was scared of what I was feeling. Seo Jun stared at him, the disbelief evident on his face. Scared? Scared of what? Of you, Hyun-soo admitted with a shaky laugh. Of how you made me feel that I was already in a relationship with someone else. I didn't want to give in to my feelings for you. I didn't know how to handle it. He looked down, his voice softening. When In-ho and I broke up, it didn't hurt as much as I thought it would. And I realized it was because I was already falling for you. I don't even know when it started. All I know is that somewhere along the way, you became the most important person in my life. Hyun-soo glanced up, his cheeks flushed with embarrassment. But today, when I saw you with her, it hit me. I can't keep running from this. I can't keep lying to myself, or to you. So, if you still want to go, if you still want to meet her after I've said all this, I'll understand. Just, tell me now so I can stop hoping. Seo Jun's stunned expression softened, and then, without warning, he stepped closer. Before Hyun-soo could react, Seo Jun cupped his face and pressed their lips together in a deep, passionate kiss. Hyun-soo's eyes widened in surprise, but then he melted into the kiss, his hands clutching Seo Jun's jacket as if afraid he might disappear. When they finally pulled apart, Seo Jun rested his forehead against Hyun-soo's, his breath warm against his skin. You have no idea how happy you've just made me, Seo Jun murmured, his voice filled with emotion. I'd already given up. I thought you'd never feel the same way, that I'd have to settle for just being near you, even if it killed me. Hyun-soo's lips trembled, and a small, relieved laugh escaped him. You're not angry? Not upset that it took me this long to realize it? Seo Jun smiled, his thumb brushing tenderly against Hyun-soo's cheek. I could never be upset with you, Hyun-soo. I've waited this long, I would have waited forever if it meant hearing you say this. Seo Jun smiled as he gently tucked a strand of hair behind Hyun-soo's ear. You know, he began, his voice soft but teasing, you were imagining things about Hannah. There's no one, who's ever made me as happy as you do. Hyun-soo's breath hitched, but Seo Jun pressed on, his tone growing more serious. You should see the way I look at you, Hyun-soo. The adoration in my eyes every time I see you. It's been there all along, you just refuse to notice it. Hyun-soo, caught off guard, locked eyes with Seo Jun. And there it was, the undeniable truth, written clearly in the way Seo Jun's gaze softened, the corners of his lips twitching upward in a tender smile. Hyun-soo felt his face heat up, his heart racing faster than he thought possible. You, really mean that? Hyun-soo asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Every word, Seo Jun replied, his grin widening. But then, as if to lighten the moment, he leaned back with a mock-serious expression. Although, I have to say, you were ridiculously cute when you were jealous. The little pout, the cold shoulder, it was like watching a rom-com in real life. I wasn't pouting. Hyun-soo protested, though his lips betrayed him by forming another pout. Seo Jun laughed, the sound rich and warm, and leaned closer to whisper, "You're doing it right now." Just as Hyun-soo was about to retort, Seo Jun's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and saw Hannah's name. He hesitated for a moment before answering, his tone casual. "Hello. Seo Jun," Hannah said on the other end, her voice hopeful, "Are you still coming to the house?" Hyun-soo froze, but Seo Jun smiled, locking eyes with him as he responded. "Sorry, Hannah, I won't be able to make it tonight. I'll be spending time with my boyfriend." There was a pause on the line, and then Hannah's voice came back, strained but accepting. "I see. Well, take care, Seo Jun, goodbye." Seo Jun ended the call and put his phone aside. He turned back to Hyun-soo, who was staring at him with wide, astonished eyes. "Did you just?" Hyun-soo began, his voice trailing off. "Did I just call you my boyfriend?" "Yeah, I did," Seo Jun said with a satisfied grin. Hyun-soo's face turned bright red, and he stammered, "Wait, does that mean we're dating now?" Seo Jun raised an eyebrow, his expression playfully smug. "Of course. Unless you're planning to reject me again, which, by the way, would be terribly rude after that heartfelt confession you just made." Hyun-soo didn't have a chance to respond before Seo Jun scooped him up into his arms with ease. "Wah, Seo Jun. What are you doing?" Hyun-soo exclaimed, flustered and blushing furiously. "Carrying my boyfriend upstairs so we can finally have some quiet time together," Seo Jun said nonchalantly, his tone laced with amusement. Hyun-soo buried his face in Seo Jun's shoulder, too embarrassed to argue, but the small smile playing on his lips betrayed his true feelings. As they disappeared upstairs, Butler Choi stood in the hallway, a knowing smile on his face. He shook his head fondly and muttered to himself, "Finally. Those two were exhausting to watch." He let out a warm chuckle, the mansion finally filled with a sense of peace and budding love. Thanks for watching. Do like and subscribe to the channel for more episodes. Hyun-soo blinked his eyes open, feeling the warmth of Seo Jun's arm draped across him. It took him a moment to process the situation, waking up in Seo Jun's embrace. His face flushed instantly, and when he shifted slightly, Seo Jun stirred, his sleepy eyes meeting Hyun-soo's. "Good morning," Seo Jun said with a soft, teasing grin. Hyun-soo averted his eyes, his face now crimson. "Morning. This still feels unreal." Seo Jun chuckled, brushing a strand of hair from Hyun-soo's forehead. "It's very real, Hyun-soo. You're not dreaming." Hyun-soo's breath caught for a second before he shyly met Seo Jun's gaze. "I love you," he whispered, his voice filled with sincerity. Unbeknownst to Hyun-soo, his phone on the bedside table had been vibrating non-stop. His mother's name lit up the screen repeatedly, but in their shared moment, neither noticed. Downstairs, Butler Choi moved quietly about the house when the intercom buzzed. To his surprise, it was Hyun-soo's mother and younger sister, Eun-ji, looking visibly worried. Meanwhile, upstairs, Seo Jun leaned back against the headboard, smirking playfully. "So, are you going to tell me how you fell for me? Was it my devastating good looks? My charm? Or was it my cooking skills?" Hyun-soo rolled his eyes, remembering what a menace he was in the kitchen but couldn't stop the small laugh that escaped. "You're so full of yourself. I honestly thought you were just an arrogant rich guy at first." Seo Jun feigned a gasp. "Arrogant? Rich guy? I'm wounded, Hyun-soo." He clutched his chest dramatically, making Hyun-soo laugh harder. "But," Hyun-soo continued, his tone softening, "you're nothing like I thought you were. You're kind, thoughtful, and you make me feel safe." Seo Jun's teasing expression faded into something more serious. He leaned forward, cupping Hyun-soo's face gently. "And you make me feel alive, Hyun-soo. You're my world now." Before Hyun-soo could respond, his stomach growled loudly, ruining the moment. He clutched his stomach, embarrassed. Seo Jun burst into laughter. Well, I guess someone's hungry. Let's get you fed. Without warning, he scooped Hyun-soo into his arms. Yeah. Seo Jun. Put me down. Hyun-soo protested, squirming, but Seo Jun only tightened his hold. Nope. You're not walking. You deserve to be treated like royalty, Seo Jun teased, carrying him towards the stairs. Meanwhile, Butler Choi, ever the watchful guardian of the mansion's delicate balance, felt his composure unravel when Hyun-soo's mother and sister arrived unexpectedly. The sight of their worried faces set him into quiet panic. He stepped forward, bowing politely, trying to stall them. Mrs. Kim, Miss Eun-ji, he began, his tone calm but his heart racing, perhaps you'd like to wait in the sitting room. I can fetch Hyun-soo for you. We've been trying to reach him all morning, Mrs. Kim interrupted, her voice firm and laced with concern. Where is he? Is he all right? Yes, is he sick again? Eun-ji chimed in, peering past Butler Choi as though she might spot her brother herself. Before Butler Choi could fabricate an excuse, a sound caught everyone's attention, the faint sound of laughter drifting from the staircase. Butler Choi's eyes widened in alarm as he turned to see Hyun-soo and Seo Jun descending the stairs. Seo Jun was carrying Hyun-soo in his arms, both of them laughing softly, entirely oblivious to the audience awaiting them below. It's not that I can't walk, you know, Hyun-soo teased, his voice light. But why should you walk when I can carry you? Seo Jun replied with a smirk, holding him just a little closer. Butler Choi's silent prayers went unanswered. Mrs. Kim and Eun-ji stood frozen, their wide eyes taking in the scene before them. Seo Jun, halfway down the stairs, finally noticed the three figures standing in the foyer. His confident stride faltered, and he nearly lost his grip on Hyun-soo. Oh no, he muttered under his breath. What's wrong? Hyun-soo started, but when he followed Seo Jun's gaze, he immediately spotted his mother, his sister, and the stricken expression on Butler Choi's face. Oh my God, Hyun-soo whispered, his ears turning crimson as he squirmed in Seo Jun's arms. Put me down, now. Seo Jun quickly but gently set Hyun-soo on his feet, rubbing the back of his neck awkwardly. Mrs. Kim. Eun-ji. I didn't realize we had company. Mrs. Kim stared at her son, her shock quickly shifting into an unreadable expression. Hyun-soo, what's going on here? Hyun-soo, utterly mortified, tried to hide his face behind his hands. Mom, I can explain. Eun-ji, meanwhile, was still processing what she had just witnessed. She pointed between the two men, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Wait, are you dating? Butler Choi, standing off to the side, simply sighed, muttering to himself, well, the cat's out of the bag now. As they all sat in the living room, Hyun-soo's mother, her protective instincts in full force, wasted no time getting to the point. She cleared her throat, fixing both Hyun-soo and Seo Jun with a firm look. Do you two really like each other? She asked, her tone calm but probing. Hyun-soo glanced at Seo Jun, his cheeks coloring slightly. Seo Jun, ever the confident one, nodded without hesitation. Yes, we do, he said, his voice steady. Hyun-soo followed with a shy but sincere, I really like him, Mom. Her expression softened momentarily before she straightened up again, her motherly concern taking over. Turning to Seo Jun, she narrowed her eyes. And you, she began. How serious are you about my son? I need to know you wouldn't neglect him or hurt him like that Inho did. Hyun-soo has been through enough. Seo Jun sat up a little straighter, his gaze steady and earnest. I understand your concern, ma'am, he began. But I promise you, Hyun-soo means the world to me. I would never treat him the way Inho did. She nodded but pressed on. Your world and ours are different, Seo Jun. Our family isn't wealthy. We can't offer you anything. You're a CEO, rich and famous. What happens when people find out? Will you be ashamed of him? Will you be able to stand by him no matter what? The room grew quiet, the weight of her words sinking in. Hyun-Soo's hands twisted nervously in his lap, but Seo-Jun reached over and gently took one of them, offering a reassuring squeeze. Mrs. Kim, Seo-Jun said, his voice soft but resolute, I've never cared about money or status. If anything, those things have only isolated me. After losing my family, I felt like no one cared about me as a person, only about what I could offer because of my wealth. But Hyun-Soo, he changed that. He helped me let go of the pain I've carried for so long. He made me feel alive again. Loved. Hyun-Soo's mother studied him, her stern expression giving way to one of quiet understanding. And you'll stand by him? Even if things get tough. I'll stand by him, Seo-Jun said firmly. I'll never be ashamed of him. I'll prioritize him and take care of him for as long as he'll have me. Her eyes glistened slightly, though she blinked it away quickly. She exchanged a glance with Eun-ji, who smiled brightly and nodded in approval. Rising from her seat, Mrs. Kim approached the couple, her stern facade finally softening completely. All right, she said, her voice warm. You have my blessing. But if you ever hurt my son. I won't, Seo-Jun interrupted with a small laugh. You have my word. She pulled both of them into a hug, Eun-ji quickly joining in. Take care of each other, Mrs. Kong murmured before pulling away. After they left, the house fell quiet again. Seo-Jun turned to Hyun-Soo, who was wiping at his eyes, overwhelmed by Seo-Jun's heartfelt words. Hey, Seo-Jun said, cupping Hyun-Soo's cheek and tilting his head up. I meant every word, you know. Hyun-Soo nodded, his voice trembling slightly. I know. I didn't expect you to say all of that. Well, you deserve to hear it, Seo-Jun replied with a soft smile. He leaned in, brushing his lips against Hyun-Soo's in a tender kiss. The moment lingered, their emotions unspoken but deeply felt. For the first time, Hyun-Soo felt secure, knowing he was with someone who truly cherished him. Later that evening, Seo-Jun sat with Hyun-Soo on the couch, his arm draped casually over Hyun-Soo's shoulders. The atmosphere was calm, but Seo-Jun's expression was thoughtful. After a few moments of silence, he turned to Hyun-Soo. I need to tell you something, he began, his tone serious but steady. Tomorrow is my cousin Tae-Yong's wedding. Hyun-Soo tilted his head, surprised. Oh, are you attending? Seo-Jun nodded. Yes, but it's not going to be a regular wedding for me. I plan to arrest him tomorrow. Hyun-Soo's eyes widened. Arrest him? At his own wedding? Seo-Jun sighed, leaning forward. Apart from the USB drive, I've acquired solid evidence of Tae-Yong and his mother's involvement in malpractice within my company. Embezzlement, fraud, you name it. They've been bleeding the company dry, and I can't let it continue. Tomorrow is the perfect time to take action, when they least expect it. Hyun-Soo frowned, a wave of unease washing over him. Seo-Jun, are you sure about this? Doing it on his wedding day, it could cause a huge scene. What if something goes wrong? Seo-Jun gave him a reassuring smile. I know it's risky, but it's the only way to ensure they don't have time to cover their tracks. I've made all the necessary preparations. My team and the authorities are ready. Still, Hyun-Soo couldn't shake the bad feeling settling in his chest. He hesitated before speaking. Then I'm coming with you. Seo-Jun blinked, caught off guard. You don't have to, Hyun-Soo. This could get messy. I know, Hyun-Soo replied firmly. But I don't feel right letting you go through this alone. If something does go wrong, I want to be there for you. Seo-Jun's expression softened, touched by Hyun-soo's determination. "All right," he agreed, placing a gentle hand on Hyun-soo's. "But stay close to me, okay?" The next morning, they arrived at the church, the grand venue bustling with guests and elaborate decorations. Hyun-soo stayed close to Seo-jun, who maintained an air of calm despite the tension brewing beneath the surface. As they approached the entrance, Seo-jun's secretary, Mr. Yoon, intercepted them. "Everything is ready," Mr. Yoon informed him quietly, glancing around to ensure no one was listening. Before Hyun-soo could wonder what Mr. Yoon thought about his boss showing up with him, Seo-jun casually introduced him. "By the way, Mr. Yoon, meet Hyun-soo. My boyfriend." Hyun-soo nearly choked on air, his cheeks flushing a deep red. Mr. Yoon blinked, visibly taken aback, before quickly regaining his composure. "Oh, I see. Congratulations, sir. And, to you, Mr. Hyun-soo." Thank you," Hyun-soo stammered, embarrassed but secretly pleased by the introduction. Mr. Yoon turned back to Seo-jun, his expression turning serious. "We're all set. The authorities are in position, and will move as soon as the ceremony begins." Hyun-soo's unease grew, but he stayed quiet, trusting Seo-jun's judgment. As they stepped inside, he silently prayed that everything would go as planned. Just as Tae-yong and his mother Mira stepped into the grand church, Hyun-soo's breath hitched. His chest tightened as recognition struck like a lightning bolt. Tae-yong wasn't just anyone. He was In-ho, his ex. His stomach churned as Tae-yong's gaze swept the room, landing on him for a brief, startled moment. Tae-yong's expression flickered with shock but was quickly masked as he composed himself and made his way to the altar. Yet, despite his attempts to appear unaffected, his eyes kept darting toward Hyun-soo and Seo-jun. Seo-jun noticed the tension radiating off Hyun-soo, his usually calm demeanor replaced by visible unease. Leaning closer, Seo-jun murmured, "What's wrong?" Hyun-soo swallowed hard, his voice barely a whisper. "That's him. Tae-yong is In-ho, my ex." He paused, the weight of his realization sinking in. He's been living a double life all this time, pretending to be someone else. A cold, sharp anger settled in Seo-jun's chest. But he knew he couldn't let his emotions take over, not yet. He forced himself to stay calm, though the sharp edge in his gaze didn't go unnoticed. The tension thickened as the ceremony began. The bride, a picture of grace and beauty, entered the church, her radiant smile lighting up the room. But at the altar, Tae-yong's unease was palpable. His hands trembled slightly, and he kept stealing glances at Seo-jun and Hyun-soo, his eyes betraying his nervousness. Seo-jun noticed every detail, and when the moment felt right, he stood. His voice cut through the serene atmosphere like a blade. "Before we proceed, I have something to say." All eyes turned toward him, the room buzzing with confusion. Calm but firm, Seo-jun revealed the truth, exposing Tae-yong and Myra's embezzlement of company funds. Gasps echoed through the church as guests exchanged shocked whispers. Tae-yong's face drained of color, and Myra's composure cracked as panic set in. The bride stood frozen, her bouquet trembling in her hands. The doors burst open as Mr. Yoon entered with the police. Officers spread out, their presence adding to the pandemonium. The ceremony dissolved into chaos as Mira tried to protest, her voice drowned out by the commotion. Tae-yong stood rooted in place, his mask of confidence crumbling as he realized there was no escape. Hyun-soo couldn't hold back anymore. His fists clenched, and he took a step forward, his voice sharp and trembling with emotion. "Tae-yong, all this time, you were pretending to be In-ho. You lied to me. You used me." His words echoed through the room, each one a punch to the man who had once meant so much to him. Tae-yong's eyes flickered with guilt, but he quickly masked it with a smirk, his posture stiffening. "Oh, so now you've moved on quickly, huh? I should have known. You took our breakup pretty well, but why must it be him? Why must it be Seo-jun?" The bride, overwhelmed by the chaos and the truth spilling out in front of her, gasped for air before her legs buckled beneath her. She fainted, falling into the arms of one of the wedding guests, her face pale and contorted in shock. The scene had turned into a nightmare, and no one was prepared for the consequences. As the officers moved in, cuffing Mira, her face twisted with fury, her high-pitched protests doing nothing to stop the inevitable. She shot a venomous look at her son, as though everything was falling apart because of him. But it was too late. The truth had already set the wheels of justice in motion. Then, just as the police officers were closing in on Tae-yong, preparing to cuff him for his part in the ordeal, everything changed. In one swift, frantic motion, Tae-yong lunged toward Hyun-soo, his grip tightening around his wrist. With a hiss, he pulled a knife from his jacket pocket, the sharp blade glinting under the harsh church lights. "Don't come any closer." Tae-yong growled, his breath ragged, eyes wide with a mix of desperation and rage. "If you touch him, I'll slit his throat. You all stay back." The room went deathly still. Hyun-soo's heart hammered in his chest, the cold steel of the knife grazing his skin. His breath came in quick, shallow gasps as he tried to comprehend what was happening. Fear surged through him, but he refused to show weakness. He had to stay calm. Seo-jun's face went pale. His eyes locked onto the scene in front of him, and for the first time, fear surged through his veins. The thought of losing Hyun-soo, of seeing him hurt, was unbearable. His hands clenched at his sides, fighting the urge to rush forward, to do anything, but he knew that Tae-yong's desperation had him in a chokehold. Any wrong move, and Hyun-soo's life could be in danger. "Hyun-soo!" Seo-jun called out, his voice hoarse with fear. His eyes never left the knife pressed against Hyun-soo's throat, the world spinning out of control. Seo-jun spoke, his voice low and trembling. "Stay away from him, Tae-yong. We only just got together. We haven't had much time to spend together. I can't lose him. Not like this." Tae-yong smirked, "Well, this is your fault. If you hadn't done this, his precious life won't be in danger now." Hyun-soo's breath quickened as he locked eyes with Seo-jun, the desperation in his gaze clear. He could feel the cold blade against his skin, and yet he knew he had to find a way out of this. Thanks for watching. Do like and subscribe to the channel for more. Yong tightened his grip on the knife, his eyes darting wildly between the police, his mother, and Seo-jun. He could feel the weight of the moment crashing down on him, but he wasn't going to let go without leaving a scar, one that Seo-jun would carry for the rest of his life. If he couldn't win, he would make sure Seo-jun lost something just as precious. His mind raced back through the years, unearthing the bitterness that had been sown long before he was even born. His mother's hatred for their family had become his legacy, passed down like a poisonous heirloom. Tae-yong could still hear his mother's voice from when he was a child, laced with anger and resentment, recounting how their family had betrayed her. Mira had always told him the story of her downfall, how her father had cast her aside the moment she became an inconvenience. She had loved his father deeply, but her father saw him as nothing more than a lowly mechanic, unworthy of their elite family. Her love story had turned into a nightmare of poverty and struggle when the family she had once belonged to shut the door in her face. After her painful divorce, Mira was left with nothing but resentment and a deep hunger for revenge. Her husband had walked away, unable to endure her relentless demands, leaving her alone with her bitterness and unfulfilled ambitions. In her mind, her brother became the symbol of everything she had lost and everything she could never have. To her, he was the barrier standing between her and the life she deserved, and she vowed to remove him at any cost. Determined to reclaim what she felt was rightfully hers, Mira took a job at a large corporation. She worked tirelessly, climbing the ladder to secure a generous salary that would fund her twisted plans. Her father's death soon gave her an opportunity to reinsert herself into the family she believed had wronged her. At his funeral, Mira introduced her son, Tae-yong, to the remaining family members, hoping to restore their place within the fold. Instead, they were coldly rejected. Her confrontation with her brother only deepened her bitterness. When she accused him of treating her unfairly, his response was both cutting and dismissive. "You've always had a cruel streak, Mira," he said, his voice laced with disdain. "That's why father never trusted you. You've always done terrible things to people, and this family wants no part of it." His words were like fuel to the fire burning inside her. Myra's anger boiled over. When the reading of their father's will revealed that he had left the family fortune entirely to her brother, save for a token amount to her, her fury turned into action. Their father's will had not only disinherited her but had also included a scathing note of disappointment in her. For Mira, this was the ultimate humiliation. She decided there was only one way forward: she would erase her brother and his family from the picture entirely. Mira hired a man to orchestrate a fatal car accident. Her plan was cold and calculated. She would ensure that her brother and his family didn't return from the reading of the will. When news of the crash reached her, she thought her scheme had succeeded. Both her brother and his wife had died in the staged accident. But her victory was short-lived. Seo-jun, their young son, had survived. Desperate to finish what she started, Mira tried multiple times to get rid of Seo-jun, but her efforts were thwarted by butler Choi, who had been named his legal guardian. Choi's watchful protection ensured that Seo-jun remained out of harm's way, forcing Mira to change tactics. Instead of physical harm, Mira turned to psychological manipulation. She discovered dashcam footage from the accident showing Seo-jun arguing with his parents shortly before the crash. Using this, she planted the idea in his mind that he was to blame for their deaths. Over time, she hoped the weight of guilt and grief would crush him. With no one else left to manage the company, Mira quickly stepped in as Seo-jun's representative. She played the part of the concerned aunt, convincing Seo-jun that he wasn't capable of handling the complexities of running the family business. She fed him a steady stream of self-doubt, framing herself as the only one who could bear the burden. "Don't worry about it," she would say, her voice dripping with feigned reassurance. "Just sign these papers, and I'll take care of everything. You have enough to deal with." As Tae-yong grew older, Mira decided it was time to let him in on her dark secrets. She told him everything: her orchestrated schemes, the accident, and the manipulation she'd used to keep Seo-jun under her thumb. She painted her actions as justified, driven by the years of neglect and suffering she had endured. Tae-yong listened, his resentment for Seo-jun growing as his mother's bitterness seeped into him. To him, Seo-jun was everything he despised: privileged, arrogant, and completely unaware of how much others had suffered because of his family. Mira encouraged her son to join her crusade. She made it clear that Seo-jun wasn't just a rival, he was a symbol of everything that had caused their pain. "If we destroy him, we destroy everything father held dear," she whispered to him one night. "That's how we win. That's how we make him regret every decision he ever made." For a while, their plan seemed unstoppable. Tae-yong fully embraced his role, helping his mother tighten their grip on the company and siphoning funds for their personal use. But everything took a turn when Mira discovered Tae-yong's secret: he was gay and in a relationship with a man. To Mira, she viewed his relationship as a liability, something that could be exploited by others and jeopardize their ambitions. She demanded that he end it, urging him to marry the daughter of a prominent family instead. "We can't afford any distractions," she told him coldly. "You have a responsibility to this family." Reluctantly, Tae-yong complied, burying his feelings to appease his mother. But their carefully laid plans began to unravel when Seo-jun, seemingly out of nowhere, started taking a sudden interest in the company. For years, he had stayed out of business matters, preferring to leave them to Mira. Now, he was asking questions, attending meetings, and pushing back against Myra's authority. The final blow came when Seo-jun confronted Mira and Tae-yong with proof of their embezzlement. Somehow, he had secured a drive containing all the evidence of their crimes. He didn't hold back, warning them that he wouldn't hesitate to expose everything if they didn't step aside. Myra's world began to crumble. She couldn't figure out what had triggered Seo Jun's newfound determination, but she knew someone or something was behind it. Her first thought was to dig deeper, but Butler Choi once again became a roadblock. He refused to let her near Seo Jun's home, shutting her out at every turn. Mira had never imagined things would spiral so far out of her control. Despite her many schemes, she hadn't believed Seo Jun would actually have the courage, or the ruthlessness, to expose her and Tae-yong, especially not during Tae-yong's wedding. She had underestimated him, blinded by years of manipulating him into submission. In the present, Tae-yong's grip on Hyun-soo remained firm as the room echoed with tension. The desperation in his eyes shifted into something darker, a twisted satisfaction. If he was going down, he would take everyone else with him. "You want the truth?" Tae-yong sneered, his voice cutting through the murmurs of shock in the room. "Here it is. My mother, Mira, killed your parents, Seo Jun. She orchestrated the accident. She wanted everything for herself." His words landed like a hammer, and Tae-yong laughed bitterly, savoring the look of devastation on Seo Jun's face. Across the room, Myra's face twisted with rage. "You fool," she spat, her voice venomous. "Do you have any idea what you've done? You've ruined everything." Her perfect mask shattered as she realized her son's confession had sealed their fate. Her anger was as much about betrayal as it was about the unraveling of her carefully constructed lies. Suddenly, a gunshot rang out, silencing the chaos. Tae-yong stumbled, his grip loosening as the pain registered. He collapsed to the floor, clutching his side as blood began to pool beneath him. Hyun-soo seized the moment, breaking free from Tae-yong's grasp and rushing to Seo Jun's side. Seo Jun wrapped his arms around Hyun-soo, holding him tightly, but the relief of their embrace was tinged with despair. Hyun-soo felt the weight of Seo Jun's devastation as he trembled in his arms. Seo Jun's eyes were hollow, his world crumbling as the truth about his parents sank in. As the police moved in, Mira and an injured Tae-yong were handcuffed and led away. Myra's fury had given way to something quieter but far more chilling, a deep, simmering resentment. As she was escorted toward the exit, she glanced back one last time. Her gaze landed on Hyun-soo, who was still holding Seo Jun, whispering words of comfort into his ear. In that moment, everything clicked for Mira. It hadn't been just luck or circumstance that derailed her plans, it had been Hyun-soo. He was the one who had given Seo Jun strength, the one who had helped him recover from her manipulation. For the first time, Mira felt powerless. All her efforts, all her sacrifices, had been for nothing. Her plans hadn't just failed, they had been utterly destroyed, and it was all because of Hyun-soo. That bitter realization burned within her as she was forced out of the church, her once mighty facade reduced to ashes. Hyun-soo and Seo Jun returned home together in silence. The weight of the day's events hung heavily in the air, and Hyun-soo could feel Seo Jun retreating into himself. As soon as they stepped inside, Seo Jun went straight to his room without a word, closing the door behind him. Hyun-soo's chest tightened with worry as the hours turned into days. Seo Jun barely ate, barely spoke, and refused to leave his room. Butler Choi, ever watchful, tried coaxing him out, but Seo Jun wouldn't budge. Hyun-soo felt helpless, pacing the hallways and stealing quiet moments to sit outside Seo Jun's door, hoping his presence might somehow offer comfort. By the third day, Hyun-soo realized that Seo Jun needed space, time to process the horrific truth about his parents. Reluctantly, he decided it was time to return to his own family for a while. He couldn't stand to leave Seo Jun in such a state, but he knew he wasn't getting through to him like this. Before leaving, Hyun-soo stood outside Seo Jun's door, resting his hand lightly on the wood. His voice was soft but steady as he spoke. "Seo Jun, I know this is hard for you. I can't imagine what you're going through, but I want you to know you're not alone. Take all the time you need, I'll be waiting for you. I'll be here whenever you're ready, no matter how long it takes. He hesitated, pressing his forehead against the door, wishing he could do more. Please take care of yourself. You're stronger than you think, Seo-jun. I believe in you. With a deep sigh, Hyun-soo stepped back and turned to butler Choi. Please look after him. Don't leave him alone for too long. I'm trusting you. Butler Choi nodded, his face lined with concern. Don't worry, sir. I'll do everything I can. Hyun-soo gave one last lingering glance at Seo-jun's door before quietly walking away, his heart heavy but filled with hope that Seo-jun would find his way back, one step at a time. After Hyun-soo left, butler Choi stood outside Seo-jun's door, his patience wearing thin. This time, he wasn't going to be gentle. He knocked firmly, his voice carrying a rare edge of anger. Seo-jun, open this door. Enough is enough. You can't stay locked up in there forever, he demanded. His tone was resolute, and the fierceness of it startled Seo-jun. After a long pause, the door creaked open. Seo-jun stood there, disheveled and pale, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. Butler Choi sighed deeply, softening his expression but not his determination. You need to pull yourself together, Seo-jun, he said firmly. What happened wasn't your fault, it was Mira and Tae-yong's doing. They're the ones responsible, not you. Don't let their actions drive you into a corner. And for heaven's sake, don't push Hyun-soo away because of this. He cares about you, more than you realize. Use this moment to start fresh, to rebuild your life. To butler Choi's surprise, Seo-jun stepped forward and wrapped his arms around him in a tight hug. The butler froze for a moment, stunned by the rare gesture of vulnerability, before gently patting Seo-jun's back. Thank you, Seo-jun said, his voice breaking. Thank you for protecting me all this time. I didn't know, and I'm sorry if I ever took you for granted. Butler Choi's usually stoic demeanor softened even further. I vowed to protect you the day your parents died, he admitted. They were good people, and I always suspected their deaths weren't an accident. Your parents trusted me to look after you, which is why they made me your legal guardian. It's a responsibility I've taken seriously, even when you've been difficult. A small, bittersweet smile appeared on butler Choi's face. And believe me, you weren't an easy one to raise. But when Hyun-soo came to apply for a job that day, I had a feeling. There was something about him, his bright eyes, his determination, his innocence. I thought, maybe, just maybe, he was the person who could bring light back into your life. And I was right. Seo-jun nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. For the first time in days, he felt a small glimmer of hope. Meanwhile, that evening, Hyun-soo sat with his mother and younger sister, recounting the events of the past few days. His mother listened intently, her face etched with sympathy. Poor Seo-jun, she said softly. He's been through so much. I hope he can find the strength to move past it. Hyun-soo's little sister, her wide eyes filled with concern, chimed in. Do you think he'll be okay, Hyun-soo? I mean, he seems so sad. Hyun-soo sighed, running a hand through his hair. I don't know, he admitted. I just hope he doesn't shut himself off forever. I know how strong he is, but this is different. His mother placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. All you can do is be there for him when he's ready. He's lucky to have someone like you by his side. Hyun-soo nodded, though his heart was still heavy. All he could do now was wait and hope that Seo-jun would find his way back to him. The next morning, Hyun-soo was startled awake by his mother and younger sister, Eun-ji, both of them smiling excitedly. Hyun-soo, wake up, his mother said, shaking his shoulder gently. Seo-jun is here to see you. Hyun-soo blinked groggily, his mind trying to process what he'd just heard. Seo-jun, he mumbled, sitting up. Before he could fully comprehend, they ushered him out of his room. The moment he stepped into the living room, Seo Jun was there, waiting. Without hesitation, Seo Jun closed the distance between them and pulled Hyun-soo into a tight hug, pressing a kiss to his lips. Hyun-soo's breath caught, but he quickly melted into the embrace, his arms wrapping around Seo Jun. The world seemed to fade away as they stood there, basking in each other's presence. "How are you feeling?" Hyun-soo asked softly, his voice tinged with concern. "I'm fine now," Seo Jun replied, his tone steady and filled with newfound confidence. "Everything will be different from now on, Hyun-soo. I promise." Hyun-soo's mother and Eun-ji watched the scene with warm smiles. "Congratulations," his mother said, her voice kind and full of approval. Eun-ji nodded enthusiastically, her eyes sparkling. 6 months later, the courtroom was filled with tension as the sentences were announced. Tae-yong was sentenced to 20 years in prison for his crimes, his face pale and unreadable. Mira, however, was sentenced to life imprisonment. She sat in silence, her expression cold and unrepentant as the weight of her punishment settled over her. Justice had finally been served. Another 6 months passed, and Seo Jun was now thriving. He strode confidently down the halls of his company, accompanied by his efficient secretary, Mr. Yoon. Inside the conference room, his latest project ideas had just been met with enthusiastic applause. As the meeting wrapped up, Seo Jun gathered his papers quickly, his movements unusually hurried. Mr. Yoon raised an eyebrow, curious. "Where are you rushing off to, sir?" he asked, falling into step beside Seo Jun. Seo Jun glanced at him with a small smile. "I'm going to pick up someone important," he said simply, his voice laced with affection and anticipation. Mr. Yoon didn't press further, watching as Seo Jun's strides quickened, his expression lighter than it had been in a long time. Hyun-soo was in his dorm room, packing his things in preparation for the holiday break. The sound of his friends entering the room was enough to pull him away from his task. "Hey, Hyun-soo, what's the rush? The exams are over, come out with us," one of his friends called, leaning against the doorframe with a grin. "We're hitting the club, come unwind with us," another friend added, clearly eager to have some fun after the stress of exams. Hyun-soo sighed, shaking his head. "I'm actually heading home," he replied, stacking his books neatly into his bag. "I want to spend some time with my family now that the holidays are here." His friends groaned in unison. "Come on, don't be such a bore," one teased, nudging him playfully. "Always so serious, no fun at all." "Yeah, you're seriously missing out," another one added with a wink. "I mean, you don't even have a boyfriend, do you?" Hyun-soo just rolled his eyes, not letting their teasing get to him. "I'm fine," he said, giving a small smile. "I'm just not into partying right now." But before anyone could comment further, Hyun-soo's phone rang. He picked it up quickly, seeing Seo Jun's name flash across the screen. "Hey, Hyun-soo," Seo Jun's voice came through, warm and familiar. "I'm outside your dorm." Hyun-soo's face brightened at the sound of his voice. "I'll be right out," he replied, hanging up. His friends watched curiously as Hyun-soo stood up, grabbing his bag. "Where are you going now?" one of them asked, genuinely puzzled. With a mischievous grin, Hyun-soo just waved them off. "I'm going to meet someone." As Hyun-soo stepped out of the dorm, his friends followed him at a distance, still joking amongst themselves. But when they saw Seo Jun standing next to a sleek car, their jaws dropped. Seo Jun smiled warmly at Hyun-soo, his gaze soft as he moved toward him. Without any hesitation, he pulled Hyun-soo into a kiss, the sight completely unexpected for their friends. "Wait, that's Seo Jun." The CEO of Kim Corp, one of his friends whispered, now looking between Hyun-soo and the man beside him in shock. Hyun-soo laughed, unaffected by the stunned looks. "Yeah, you guys enjoy the club," he said, turning to wave them off before following Seo Jun to the car. As Seo Jun loaded Hyun-soo's things into the trunk, his friends stood frozen in disbelief, trying to process everything they had just witnessed. Once in the car, the tension lifted as Hyun-soo and Seo-jun shared a laugh. They looked completely shocked. Hyun-soo said with a grin. "I know, right?" Seo-jun chuckled. "It was priceless." Hyun-soo leaned back in his seat, feeling content. "I missed you," he admitted softly. "I'm just happy we're finally together, Seo-jun." Seo-jun reached over, squeezing his hand. "I missed you too. And now that we're here, it feels right." They drove off into the evening, the city lights twinkling in the distance, their laughter filling the car as they looked forward to the future, together. Thanks for following my cold boss. I hope you enjoyed the story up till the last episode. Do like and subscribe for more stories to come.